Thanks for selling your car to Carvana. Here's your check.
Whoa, when did I get here?
What do you mean?
I swear it was just moments ago that I accepted a great offer from Carvana online. I must have time traveled to the future.
It was just moments ago. We do same-day pickup. Here's your check for that great offer.
It is the future.
It's the present and just the convenience of Carvana. Sorry to blow your mind.
It's all good. Happens all the time.
Sell your car the convenient way to
Carvana.
Pickup times may vary and fees may apply.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
G'day world, this is the Sniper of the Skies, Robbie Eagles, and you are listening to Keeping It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ASA podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Fraser Japan. On today's show, we'll review the playoffs and finals of G1 Climax 35 and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leave a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tea store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Styles, where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order. That's chopped-tees.com/KI Strong Style. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for all members this week. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Fraser, Josh, how you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Happy birthday, Jeremy. Congratulations, and I apologize that basically you had no say on me being on this podcast, given you were live there last week. And I listened rather nervously to what your response was going to be. But no, I'm good. Went to the finals on the weekends and have been hunkering down in a nuclear bomb shelter after the social media outbursts from everybody after the weekend's results.
Well, we are definitely delighted to have you back on the show here, Fraser. And I think it's an apropos time because you were live in the building for the G1 finals. I have to apologize to you because you had to sit through the EVIL Takeshita match. We'll get to that here in a little bit. The other thing too is, they just did the quarterly reporting. Not that there's anything super huge, but I think you're probably the most qualified individual to kind of delve into that, give us some insight to what your experience was live and also what some of the vibes are with the monolithic Japanese Shinihan fan. But before we jump into any of that, I have to echo your sentiments. Jeremy, happy birthday. I sent you a gift. We don't always get each other gifts, not like that kind of friendship. Time to time we will. But I felt like it was appropriate to send you a particularly poignant gift today. And so I hit up friend of the show, Chris Sampson. I asked him, I said, what is the retail value of all of the prizes for the Pick'em contest? And he told me roughly around $175. So Jeremy, for your birthday, even though you were disqualified from getting all these free Patreons and everything, I went ahead and I sent you $175 Amazon gift card, and hopefully that takes away some of the sting of being second place, even though you got the same point total as the winner, and also getting no prizes.
Well, Josh, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I saw that come through. I was like, "Oh, big baller over here, big spender."
It's probably going to make up for all the years that I didn't get you anything, which I think are probably pretty numerous.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for the birthday wishes, and yeah, Josh, yeah, I really appreciate the gift card, and like I took Chris Sampson today. It's like all I really needed was the bragging rights, but I will definitely appreciate the gift card and make good use of that. And we also have to give a birthday shout out to our social media manager, Emily. Her birthday is also today, turning 22. Happy birthday, Emily, and thank you.
Happy birthday, Emily.
The great work you're doing on our Twitter account in Blue Sky.
Thank you for making everything Gen Z-ish.
Jeremy, may I ask a question? I know you're quite close to Samsa. So this first place of yours, was it a work or a shoot?
Well, it was a tie. So it was both. We had 143 points. So by tiebreakers, I got second, but it was same point total because the first place person actually predicted Takeshita and EVIL would be in the final. I had Takeshita and Tsuji in the final with Takeshita winning. So we both had Takeshita winning, but the first place he actually had EVIL in the finals there. So that's why I didn't get the first place.
I see. Very good.
I think that's only fair and correct.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
And that individual, whoever that person was, even though they were right, they're either a deeply demented and sick individual, or they have deep insight into the terrorist booking of Gedo. And, they dared walk where we would not walk,
Yeah, I made a joke about on the show about like redoing my bracket multiple times, which I did. And one of the times I had EVIL winning the A block. I had him going to the semifinals, and because they were doing the whole House of Torture push, and I was like, no, I just can't. Why am I thinking like this? Why am I doing this? And I changed it. Had Suji going through, and so yeah, I just couldn't do it. But the madman Gedo did it. He put EVIL through, and we'll jump into all that here today on the show.
Disgusted.
So let's not waste any more time. We have lots of shows here to talk about. I figured for the B block finals and the playoffs, maybe we can kind of speed run through some of that so we can get to the meat and bulk of the show, the G1 finals, which there are also a ton of questions on. People want to know our ratings, takes, and opinions, because of course we take those very seriously here on this show, not a game. So let's jump in. So where we left off last week, G1 Climax Night 16. This was Wednesday, August 13th. This was the final B block night in Act City, Hamamatsu. And a reported attendance here of 1,730. We had Tanahashi and Murashima defeating Yasuda and Taichi. TMDK defeating United Empire. Bolton and Yano defeating Sanada and Kanemaru. Daiki Nagai and Tsuji defeating Shomakato and Yuya Uemura. Dick Togo and EVIL defeating Finley and Gedo. And then we had our tournament action. We had Shingo Takagi defeating Drilla to get to 10 points and knocking out Drilla there. And then we had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Yoshihashi to get to 14, locking up the number one spot in the B block. Then in the semi-main event, we had Shota Umino defeating Great Okan to get to 12, locking in the second place spot for the B block. And then the main event was the Alpha Konosuke Takeshita defeating Ren Narita by ref's decision in 20 minutes and 50 seconds to get the B3 spot. Fraser, you were in the building for this show. What was your overall thoughts on this show? Anything stand out from any of these B block matches?
Yeah, in the interest of talking about some quite topical, controversial points later, I'll keep it pretty brief. I just say maybe three things. Firstly, I thought Yoshihashi and Zack Sabre Jr. was a superb match. Zack was already through, Yoshi was already out. So to put in that kind of shift in that context, I thought was superb. Then ironically after that, Shota, who should be desperate to qualify for the block, had what I thought was a very insipid performance against the great Okan. And I wasn't overly surprised by that. And my third point, most importantly, was I was sitting on my New Japan cushion. Takeshita got thrown to the outside by Narita and ended up falling on my chair and lying all over my cushion, which was highly exciting. So that is my 3 key points.
Young boy, any thoughts on final B block night?
I thought the first 2 matches of the evening really delivered. I agree with what you said there, Fraser. I thought that Yoshihashi and Zach was, I guess it was as good as we probably imagined it could be, but considering the fact that like Yoshihashi was already like eliminated and all that, I didn't think it had any reason to go as hard as it did, but they went pretty fucking hard. That match really ruled. I thought that Shingo and Drilla also was really great. And the one prediction we got wrong on last week's show is I think we both thought that Drilla was going to pick up that win. He ends up taking the loss to Shingo. A little surprised by that, but you know, that was the most difficult match to predict of the evening. But the last 2 matches just did not do it for me whatsoever. I thought Shota Umino and Okan really underwhelmed. And I made a joke in our Discord where I was like, I prefer their 2017 Young Lions Cup matches, you know, to the 2025 G1 match between them, which is a shame. And then the main event was echoes and shadows of things to come, because everything that was going to take place with House of Torture and Takeshita later on, this was a precursor for that, and not in a good way. And another thing too, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Every single person that got beat by the chicken wing choke was choked unconscious. Not a single one of them did a tap, which I don't know. In America, when guys do that, I don't know if it's the same, but in America, guys do that to do fake jobs so that they don't have to they can say, I went out on my shield. I didn't actually tap out. So it's like I almost didn't lose for some reason, even though it is clearly losing. And I am wondering why nobody tapped out to that move the entire G1. Maybe there is a story element there, but I didn't hear like commentary really pushing a particular narrative throughout the PW prescription. That's Doc says Brazilian taps. Yeah. So yeah, I was a little surprised by that like, you know, all these guys are kind of doing like protected, you know, choke out finishes for Takeshita the whole tournament, which is, I don't know. It's a little interesting.
Can I just say one last thing, Jeremy, that sort of slightly pissed me off about the show? Because I'd been to the Takasaki A block match that you've already talked about, or match beforehand where Yuya got eliminated, much to people's surprise. And then I was watching Yuya when he came out for the B block final on the undercard. I thought he'd have a sour face on, like, you know, kind of, I'm gutted I got eliminated. And he just comes out in his super smiley baby face kind of way. And I thought, oh, come on, dude, there should be some, if this is a sport, you should have a bit of an angry face on, but not to be. So anyway, that was my last thought on that show.
Yeah, and I can agree with a criticism like that. I made a similar criticism to about Kevin Knight during Best of Super Juniors, where like he was on a losing streak and he was still coming out and doing his 2-fly walk and taunting and acting like nothing, like he was winning. And so yeah, I definitely agree that some of these guys who got knocked out, I'm not saying you need to pull a 0-2 Christian Cage and throw a temper tantrum and cry on the mat, but it shows some kind of frustration that you were not happy being in this undercard and you wish that you were going on into the finals. And I agree with a lot of the sentiments that you guys had to say about this night. Really enjoyed Shingo and Trilla. And like Josh mentioned, that was the one match we were kind of going back and forth on last week, because essentially it didn't really matter who won. Both guys were going to eventually get eliminated. And I thought it would have been a good move to give the younger guy and the guy who really got over in this tournament, Drilla, the win, but we'll get into it. But we are getting an unaffiliated War Dogs feud, so I'm sure we'll see these guys mix it up again. But really enjoyable match. And then Zach and Yoshihashi.
Which War Dogs are the unaffiliated War Dogs?
No, unaffiliated versus the War Dogs.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, that hot faction, unaffiliated.
I didn't know there was a thing called unaffiliated. I just thought you were talking about some unaffiliated War Dogs. No, I'm just playing.
But yeah,
affiliated is so fucking stupid.
Zack and Yoshihashi, yeah, they absolutely killed it. Yoshihashi, you know, showing the spirit of Goto, doing, you know, his little samurai hand taunt there, getting a good pop from the crowd, and you know, really trying there. There's some really great near falls, but yeah, Zack was able to get the win there. And then yeah, the last two matches, which were kind of like the two, you know, quote unquote big important matches of the evenings, were just kind of there. You know, we've talked about Umino. He had just a very inconsistent tournament. There were some nights where he showed up, it looked really good, and then there were nights like this where he was just kind of there. And Okan is the same way too, and we've had that complaints about Okan for the last couple of years now, where there are just some nights where he just really looks great. You know, you think of that Jon Moxley match that he had. There's some other matches where he just looks really good and stands out. You're like, man, this guy's awesome. And then again, there's matches like this where it's like, man, like, what is up with this guy? Like, why? And the crowd loves him. Like, he gets great crowd reactions. They're into his whole seat thing. Like, he gets all these sponsors and video game people to come to the ringside with him. And it's like, man, like, if this guy could just like consistently have great matches, like, he could be a star. But he just doesn't. And so, yeah, that match was fine. I think we all kind of expected Umino to win there. And, yeah, then the big main event, Takeshita defeating Narita. And like you said, Josh, this was, yeah, the precursor of things to come. And it was just a very frustrating watch. You know, you had all the House of Torture antics. Narita going after Takeshita's knee with the push-up bar. And you said all, you know, the whole, you know, the clown car, all these guys running out, and you know, Rocky's trying to fight all these guys off, and eventually Takeshita is able to, you know, overcome everybody, get the chicken wing on Narita, get the ref decision win. And it's so weird with Takeshita because he's a heel in AEW, and pretty much wherever he goes, he's presented as a heel. But in New Japan, going back to last year's G1, they've kind of presented him as a babyface. And again here, you know, he's in this situation against Narita and the house, and again, he's supposed to be a face, but Rocky's out there, clearly heel. He's a heel. And so I feel like a lot of that dynamics were just really weird with this match. And then with all the cheating and shenanigans, it was just not a great way to end off the league play.
I agree. I was a little disheartened the way that this finished, but I also was sitting there thinking, like, this looks exactly like how we pretty much painted it to be. And, you know, the playoffs look like they're going to be pretty solid. So I wasn't completely disappointed, but there were some signs of a rift already coming out of the B block night.
Yeah. We did have a question here from Reddit user Diego for Ian Island. Would you like Shota more or less if he wore a backwards baseball cap and some large gold chains to the ring? Also, how come Shota is fun in preview tags but boring in singles matches? What gives?
I'll kick that over to you, Fraser, first.
Yeah, it's extremely kind of you, Josh. I wouldn't differentiate Shota so much between the previews and the singles. I would just say sort of night to night, you kind of don't know what you're going to get with him. And I think Shota's problem, which maybe we'll talk to later, in my opinion at least, is that in ring, he's getting better. Obviously, some nights like the night we just talked about, it's not so flash. But I think his biggest weakness is charisma and also character definition. It's just like, dude, show some fire, show some energy. And like, you win in Hamamatsu to get through to the top three. And it's like, oh yeah, I just wrestled a match. I'm going to walk to the back now. And my job is done. So I just think in general, it's just inconsistency with him. I thought one of my favorite matches I watched live, going all the way back to Nagaoka, was him versus Zack. That was a killer match, and I really, really liked that. And then you just get nights like this where, his stakes are super high, and he just does nothing. I think the question's probably a joke. He's changed his look so many times, and I just don't see that part of it sticking. For me, at least, what would most likely work for Shota would probably be a heel turn, I think. I can't see just another slight change in his babyface presentation changing things too much.
Yeah, and we just had a comment from Doc saying Umino was so much better 2 years ago, and yeah, like you're saying, Fraser, like he's just super inconsistent. And I feel like this year with his whole character, like he just didn't really do a great job in presenting him. And, you had the big loss to Ocon. He shaves the head. And, like, I feel like that was a perfect opportunity for some kind of reset. And they kind of did it. He came back, less color, trying to be Mr. Serious Guy, do more lariats. But then he kind of just shifted back to being previous Umino. He's wearing the backwards hat. He's putting the sunglasses on. He's, throwing up hearts with ELP. And it's like some nights he's serious, some nights he's playing around, and it's just not consistent.
Well, tag team wrestling as a whole is a unique art in and of itself, but there's clearly a house style with New Japan. And a lot of their tag matches are highly formulaic. And if you look back at the history of Shota Umino, I mean, look at all the, Young Lions preview tags that he excelled in for so long. I think that might in some ways be a little bit of a safe haven and a familiar zone for him. And there is that kind of just expectation. It's like I don't want to speak down to tag team wrestling because it can be a transcendent thing, but oftentimes night in and night out, it is a little bit of a shortcut. Like there's formulas to get through the match to make guys shine and make them look good. And that might speak to some of Umino's strengths. That's why I usually think that he does excel in those matches as well. But to echo what you said, Fraser, it is an inconsistent issue. Like night to night, he doesn't always have the goods. And I don't know if that is a mindset thing, a physical thing, a chemistry thing, an audience thing. I really don't know what it is, but I've learned at this point not to put any great level of expectation on Shota Umino. Could he deliver when the time comes? Absolutely. I thought that the match with him and Zach was one of the best matches of the G1, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he had stellar, performances in this tournament. And I know that there are some apologists out there. I know I saw Walker Stewart and I want to say maybe Chris, I don't want to throw that on him, but I saw people basically saying hey, people are sleeping on Shota Umino. Look at his body, look at his growth. And I'm like, I don't see it. Maybe he's competent, but I don't see a guy that you can really rely on to deliver in the big spots. And me personally, I think when we're going to get to it, but I thought that the Tsuji match was evident of that.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue going into night 17. So that was Thursday, August 14th from Korakuen Hall. Having attendance here, 1,518. We had Kojima and Taichi defeating Shomakato and Yoshihashi. The House of Torture defeating ELP, Jado, Bolton, and Yano. United Empire defeating Tanahashi, Murashima, and Yuya Uemura. The War Dogs team of Drilla and Ishimori defeating Daiki Nagai and Shingo Takagi. House of Torture defeating TMDK. And then we had our two playoff matches here. Semi-main event, Konosuke Takeshita defeating the Rebel David Finlay in 17 minutes and 12 seconds. And then the main event, Yota Tsuji defeating Shota Umino 28-18 to advance. Fraser, what were your thoughts on these playoff matches here?
Yeah. So again, I was at Korakuen for that, and it's always a fantastic place to watch G1. It's probably my favorite place to watch G1. Takeshita Finlay, I thought was great. You knew you had two highly skilled workers in there. Finlay's good with anybody. Takeshita is a fantastic wrestler as well. I thought it was a fast, hard-hitting match. One move in particular that really sticks on my mind that I like was when Takeshita was basically doing those sort of throws across the mat of Finlay into the turnbuckle corner pads. And Finlay really bumps really well as well. So I thought that was excellent. And then I also thought after the match, I think backstage, Finlay started talking about because he was out by that stage, right? Because these were elimination matches about guns pointing in. And I was thinking, geez, who's this going to be about? Because if it was about Gabe Kidd, well, given everything that's going on in the background, the timing could not be worse for that switch to happen. or whether or not Callum's in there. But I really like that match. And then the second one, Suji Shota, for me, this was quite sloppy in parts, especially I'd put quite a bit of that on Shota. And I found the first half of the match, it went long, right? About 28 minutes or something like that. And the first half of the match was not overly inspiring. There were a few hard hits in there, but otherwise not that great. But it's quite important in Japanese society, again, like Shota's the senpai or the senior, and Suji is the junior, the kohai, right? And Suji looked like the man in that match. He dominated the match in terms of just the overall sort of, ring psychology, just his moveset and everything else. And he looked like much more of the closer to being the star than what Shota did. And then I quite liked at the end that whole contempt for red shoes and daddy refereeing Shota's matches and stuff. I really like that part, and Suji had talked about it before the tournament. So that part I quite liked. And I thought, long story short, Suji had a good night out. Shota did not, in my opinion.
What do you think, Josh?
I don't really have much more to add there. I thought that was a pretty great summation of what really occurred there. I thought that the Takeshita and Finley match was really, really good. One thing I've noticed, and this is maybe just me, I haven't really talked about this too much on the air, so maybe I could bring this up, but like I was recently diagnosed ADHD, like at, I don't know, how old am I? 36, 37, something like that. I don't even know how old I am. But it's like one of those things where it's like I never knew I had it. And then I started seeing a psychiatrist and she suspected. So I took this test and it was like, oh, all this shit's not normal for people to be doing, like, all this stuff that's relevant to me. So they put me on stimulants. It seems to be helping a lot. So that's really good. But here's the thing is like when you're waking up to watch G1 early in the morning and you have ADHD and it's too early for you, first off, you have to have like eaten something that's a little bit nutritious before you can like take the stimulant, and it kind of like mellows you out. So it's like I'm trying to watch G1 before work early in the morning, and it's like the temptation of like all this other shit that you could be doing with that time early in the morning. It's really hard to like just zone in, plus you're tired, plus you're zonked. So it's like, damn, I'm like, I wish I had time to just like not watch it in the morning, stay spoiler free, and then maybe, I don't know, at lunch or post work it might be a better viewing experience. But it is what it is. We have to, the show must go on. But I thought Takeshita Finley was really good. Believe it or not, and this is going to sound, I don't want to sound like, I know this sounds haterish, and I'm not trying to sound haterish. And I think it has I don't think it has more to do with like the talent involved, but more so the structure of the match. I thought Finley was the star of that match. I thought Finley muscling Takeshita and throwing his ass all over the like God's green, cerulean blue mat was fucking awesome. And obviously, like we knew Takeshita was going to win at the end, but I think the match was structured to sort of make ADH gang, to make Finley the star there in losing, which I thought, made sense. Plus, they've really started to kind of play up going down the stretch, some of the ailments and the knee injuries, kind of plaguing Takeshita, and he did a fair bit of selling all down the stretch. But as far as Takeshita as far as Suji and Shota Umino goes, I don't have anything beyond what Fraser said. I think that was a really great summary of what took place there. And, it's one of those things where even if the match wasn't like bad necessarily, you kind of want a guy that, again, I guess we're relitigating the Shota Umino thing. It's like for all of the opportunities that they've given him and everything, and the fact that there's no denying that these are the two most heavily pushed Reiwa guys of this generation thus far, in a big spot like this in the main event, I just feel like you want more. And the fact that they didn't deliver that more is a little disheartening. And I do think a lot of it was Umino. So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed the match. I wouldn't say it's great, but a lot of the reason why I enjoyed the match was because Tsuji was just beating the crap out of Umino the whole match. And
I did love how he rushed him at the beginning of the match and like had a no nonsense attitude. That was great.
Yeah, I thought Tsuji looked like a star. He came out with the short boys that he came out with in New Beginning in Osaka, and he just looked ready to go. Umino looked like he had the boo-boo face on, like he knew he was doing the job. Didn't want to try, but that was all right. Tsuji came out there, chopped that man to pieces, looked like a star, and yeah, I thought Tsuji looked great, and I enjoyed Tsuji just beating the crap out of Umino through the whole match, and eventually getting the big win there over Umino. And yeah, I mean, these guys are I know they're not the same Young Lion class, but essentially they're in kind of the same generation and should be kind of like generational rivals. They're the two top young guys that are pushed. And yeah, I feel like Tsuji has just went leaps and bounds over Umino at this point. And the crowd connection, I mean, Fraser, you were there. It seemed like the crowd was really into the Tsuji from the get-go. And I know Red Shoes is trying to do the whole, who's getting more cheers, and I know that Yota and Shota sound very similar, but I really feel like the crowd was like 80-20, like Tsuji. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Tsuji was definitely more popular, but I would just say one point, coming back to sort of the Japanese side of it, they are of a similar age, but still Young Lion intake. Tsuji was behind Shota, right? And that is actually quite a big deal to be sort of put in a big spot where you look like the senpai or the dominant one, and Shota looks like the kohai or the submissive one. And I think that made that sort of whole Tsuji domination of the match in every facet even more impactful, I thought. So, yeah, it's quite unusual to see a match where it goes for so long, but you feel like pretty much one wrestler got almost all of it than the other. So an interesting watch, and I think the right result at that point in time to move Tsuji on.
Yep.
Another thing too, I thought it was kind of interesting that he brought out, the trunks on this evening, because it was like, why is he not saving that for the bigger matches that might potentially be down the pipeline? And that made me very nervous about his prospects for the rest of the tournament. The other thing too is some of his backstage comments that he was making around this time, like talking about Umino and the
V4.
What's that?
The V4.
Yeah, he started talking about the V4 and bringing that back, which is relitigating an old talking point that had gotten a lot of a lot of like momentum back then, but obviously wasn't going to lead to anything. And it's like, why is he bringing that up again? You know what I mean? Like, and then why was he talking about the nepotism stuff with Shota Umino and Red Shoes again? And it was like, these are old talking points that he'd had a while back that never led to anything. And it made me start feeling like, oh my God, he's not going to fucking win the next round because he's talking about shit that has nothing to do with the rest of the G1. And you would think if he was really on his path to being, in the finals, he wouldn't have done the big show gear on that night. And he wouldn't still be talking about this irrelevant stuff that is intended to like garner, interest and stuff, but really is never going to lead anywhere. And once I saw that, I was like, oh my God, what's about to happen,
Yeah. I was a little worried too. Yeah, when he came out with the big match gear, I was hoping maybe that's just he's going to carry it on through to every main event after that. But yeah, when
it came out the next night
in the Long Boys.
Like, oh no!
Oh man!
One last thing we didn't talk about. There was that beef, the deal with like Red Shoes, him and Umino and everything, and then he beats Umino, and there was a lot of talking points about, the Red Shoes hand raise, just the very short, just boom and then roll out of the ring and all that shit. And, I don't know if that's a work or a shoot or what the fuck, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Got people talking.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's something to that. If maybe Red Shoe's not happy about the comment Tsuji making, or if he's playing into being Umino's dad. Who knows? Yeah, interesting there. I do want to make a point back to Takeshita and Finley. I did enjoy that match, but there's one thing that kind of bothered me about it, and it's a kind of a theme throughout the whole tournament with other stuff too. Is I just felt like Finley and Takeshita are both awesome wrestlers, and I felt like I would have loved to seen them just stay more in the ring. Like they had the crowd brawl, which I get it. Finley's a war dog. Crowd brawls are cool, and then you had the huge table spot, which was awesome. But in a vacuum, it's like, man, like we have with all the House of Torture stuff happening, with all the run-ins and people getting hit by wrenches and pipes and garrote wires and reinforced push-up bars. I'm like, I would love for there just to be a match where like it's just about what's in the ring. Like, don't go outside, don't pull out a table. Like, this is supposed to be like the best like in-ring bell-to-bell tournament, and these are two of the top guys in the tournament. Like, why can't? And I'm not saying never go outside the ring, but like I think that this would have been a good opportunity, especially for Finley. I mean, Finley did look good, but I think to really show, because people see Takeshita as one of the best in the world, and I feel like it would have been a good opportunity for Finley to show that he can hang if they had just kind of stayed more in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the simple fix on that one is, and you've got the match times in your notes, those two went 17, and then Tsuji and Shota went 28. I think you could have flipped that around, and you could have flipped the match order around as well, to be honest. I think that would have been much better.
Yeah. Well, let's jump up now to night 18. So going into the semifinals, this was Saturday, August 16th, and this was in the Ariake Arena. We had an attendance here of 4,558. So, last time they were in this building, historic crossover 2022, they did an attendance of 7,102. So quite down from that number. And then if you look compared to last year's semifinals, which was in Ryogoku, they did 5,340. So also down from that number as well. And then we had the show kicking off with Matsumoto, Tiger Mask, and Toki Makabe defeating Yasuda, Shomakato, and Zayn J. We had Desperado, Taguchi, Umino, Yoshihashi, and Uemura defeating Wato, Kojima, Taichi, Yano, and Yo. Bolton Oleg and Hanuma losing to Fale and Yujiro. Cal Newman, Great Khan, Jacob Austin Young defeating ELP, Tanahashi, and Morishima. Daiki Nagai and Shingo defeating Finley and Gato. Sonata and Kanemaru defeating Drilla and Ishimori. Doki, Narita, and Sho defeating Hartley Jackson, Vegeta, and Oiwa. And then we got into the semi-final action, semi-main event. We had EVIL defeating Yota Tsuji by ref's decision in 18 minutes and 1 second.
Come on, Josh. You were locked and loaded right at the beginning of the show, so I'm going to give you the floor here. I'm keen to hear an epic speech on this one.
My dog is actually giving me issues right now, so bear with. I guess he wants to sit with me, so just hold on. And this is getting a little ridiculous. Like, come on.
Go ahead, Fraser.
Damn it. I was going to try and go second, but that's okay.
No, it's okay. I got it. So
go ahead.
I this isn't really where I'm going to necessarily have my, I know that some people are thinking I'm going to have like a performative rant, and maybe, I don't know, EVIL does get my blood boiling. So there is a chance before this is all over, said and done, that might occur. But I thought this was a travesty to even have this booked in the first place was very questionable. And then for us to turn around and have here's the terrible thing about it. And a lot of people probably disagree with me. I thought the match itself, bell to bell until the finish, was actually really great. More so and we've seen this many times. They highlighted it on commentary, like that there's been several times in the G1 in the past few years where EVIL gets very close to making the finals, but then he gets thwarted. And that that match where he gets thwarted is always like the highest peak of emotion. The crowd is so amped for it. They want to see, the good guy prevail and keep him out of the finals. And I felt like that energy was prevalent here in this match. And the Gaga was so egregious and over the top that it just started to feel like, oh my God, there's so much of this that there's no way that babyface Reiwa, top pushed guy Tsuji isn't going to defy the odds and get this guy out of here. And then for them to do the bullshit finish with fucking Dick Togo holding onto the leg of the referee, which that is like, again, this is something you brought up last week, Jeremy, or the week before, where it's like the amount of egregious type of cheating that is making the referees look stupid is something that's really hurting the overall presentation. And that's a prime example. Like, how is that not an immediate DQ that the second is in there holding onto the leg of the guy? And then for them to have Fale just come in and, razor's edge this dude and then have him get beat by the Scorpion Deathlock without tapping. It just looked terrible. It deflated the crowd. Now I know there's a lot of rhetoric and debate out there about what the domestic and the international audience felt in this split that exists. And I'm sure that is a real thing, but if you watch the actual match, it's very clear that the crowd just goes dead because, look at the optics of the momentum of the match. You have a good guy who's beating all the odds. He's getting ready to win. And then these bad guys just overwhelmingly cheat and just get him out of there. And he wins in a very anticlimactic way. It just let the air out of the building. And I thought that was a really cheap way to finish the match and a really disappointing. And then to turn around and realize like, oh my God, we're getting EVIL in the finals of the G1. That is so preposterous. Even if, and we'll talk about it, Fraser, you'll be able to speak to it. Like, I'm sure that there is a divide. Doc says the finish was so stupid. Why have Tsuji lose like that? Yeah, I agree. I know that there's probably not as much of an outrage for a domestic audience as maybe there was like internationally, but to be honest, yes, I get it. This product needs to appeal to the domestic audience, but at the same time, me as a fan, I don't really care I don't care what you guys hear on the show. Even I respect you guys, but I don't even care. Like if you liked something and I didn't, if I didn't like it, I don't like it. So it's hard for me to care if a entire swath or group of people felt differently than me as a fan. I'm just like, this sucks. This is not what I want to see. It's not what like attracted me to this product and what keeps me invested. And it was very disheartening and deflating to just realize like, oh my God, EVIL's going to the finals and that's going to fucking suck. And we're probably going to review the worst G1 in the history of this show. G1 final, I should say.
Fraser, what were your thoughts in the building? What was the energy like during that match and Tsuji losing?
Well, maybe I just start off by saying before I went to the venue, I was talking to my girlfriend in the morning and she's going, oh, so what's happening today and stuff. She used to go to a few shows, but she doesn't so much anymore, given a lot of the top stars have gone. I said, oh, yeah, there's two semifinals, but EVIL and Zack are definitely not winning. It's so obvious that Tsuji and Takeshita is the final. So I'm going and it should be interesting, but you know. So I seriously thought EVIL was like less than 10% chance. So I guess my thoughts, and I think this whole sort of how do some of the Japanese fans think, how do some of the Western fans think, I think that's better discussed in the context of the final with Takeshita, because he's got his own kind of, polarization as well. But my thoughts on the match were that the match itself, firstly, then I'll talk about the reaction. Within the match itself, I personally thought, okay, as Josh has said, Tsuji was the guy that I guess he wanted to get over. I also thought what was just disappointing from my perspective is I don't think he got that much in the time that it actually went for. So I think at least if you're going to give Evil the controversial win, try to make along the way before all the shenanigans at the end, give Tsuji something so he looks a bit more like the killer he was at Korakuen 2 nights before that, right? And that was disappointing. And then when Evil won, I was like, what the fuck? And I was like looking around the rest of the venue, and it kind of reminded me, that's probably a take that people would not want to hear, listen to a New Japan podcast. But you know when Brock ended like the Undertaker's streak or something? It was like, everyone can't believe it. So I was looking around the crowd, and it was slightly different, I think. I don't think Japanese fans are saying, oh, you know, fuck off Evil, or how dare you win. It was more like, Evil won? I can't believe it. And that vibe stayed there for at least the first 10 minutes or so of what I think we'll get to later was a very, very good match. But it's really hard to warm the crowd up again after that. And it did make me think on the long trip home, because Ariake Arena is an incredible venue inside, but it's a total pig to get to, is that maybe if they were going to do that, maybe you could have swapped it around. You might say, wow, it's not great to send the crowd home unhappy, but you did it in the first match. And because it was so shocking, there was still, whoever was going to be unhappy was still unhappy by the end of the show anyway. So yeah, these were probably my main feelings about that match.
Yeah, I was absolutely blown by how this match went down and the finish of the match. And, like Josh was saying, it's like, there was just so much of the shenanigans that was happening. And normally when you have a match like that, yeah, it's set up because the Babyface is going to overcome all of that and he's going to win, and the Heels will have egg on their face, and it would quote unquote be worth it because the Babyface gets the last laugh. And so, yeah, for all that, all the run-ins, all the low blows, and, I know that LIJ is technically no more, but there's still some of that LIJ-ism where they're not the best seconds. And, you had Daiki Nagai and Shingo out there with Tsuji. And at times, yeah, they came in and helped Tsuji. But, I mean, at the rate that the house guys were jumping in, like at the very end where Fale hits the bad luck fall, like Shingo is standing there watching on the outside, watching Fale hit the bad luck fall on Tsuji, and then tries to get in and then gets knocked off. And it's like, why didn't you try and like stop that mid bad luck fall? And it just looked so stupid. And like, Tsuji, why are you with these guys? Like, they sit there and watch you get jumped, get beat, and they had their boys out there, and they were doing a great job of helping Evil. And so I think it made Tsuji look dumb. It made Shingo and Daiki Nagai look dumb. And yeah, I think it really killed a lot of the momentum Tsuji built up, even just coming off that Umino match where he looked like such a star and looked like, oh man, they're really getting behind him. He's going to make it to the finals again. It's going to be a big moment for him. And then, yeah, it just really just killed that moment there with Evil getting the win. And I just don't get it. And I guess we'll dive into it more when we get into the finals. But for me, I'm like, we talk about these numbers in the building. The numbers, a lot of them are lower compared year to year, and they're continuing to go all in on this Evil stuff and House of Torture. And to me, that's not seem to be equaling people coming to the venues. And just hearing how much the crowd was into Tsuji, and then how silent it got after he got into that Darkness Scorpion and the ref called it. And for me, I was like, a couple signs of like Tsuji was losing. It's like, all right, he had the tights or the short trunks night before, then he came out with the long boys. I'm like, damn. And then they're harping on commentary, like you mentioned, Josh, about Evil always gets to this spot and always loses. And I'm like, they're hitting that point a little too hard. They're like Michael Cole subtlety hammer, like, yeah, Evil always loses in this spot. Evil always loses in this spot. I'm like, oh, I just had this like sick feeling in my stomach. I'm like, oh,
it's gonna happen again tonight, Michael.
Yeah, then he had the bad luck fall, which at that point, the bad luck fall is one of those moves where it's like, even at this point in Don Fale's career, it's like you get hit with that, like it's done. He got hit with
Don Fall.
Yeah, the Don Fall, whatever. Yeah, and then he gets put in the Darkness Scorpion. I'm like, and again too, back to the whole referee stuff, like how dumb it makes the referee look. And I know I listened to the AEW podcast, and Rick Knox was on there this week talking about, he hates when fans, criticize, the refs and the sacredity of the sport, like yada, 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 yada. And I kind of get what he's saying, but like, I think there's a point where you just make it look so egregious, so bad. It's
Don't look like a cuck.
I get it. Like, I know that, interference, DQs, all that, it's all part of wrestling. We know that, but I think there are creative ways to distract the ref. I think there are creative ways to bump the refs. I think there are creative ways to cheat and get heat without doing the style of heat that they're doing with EVIL and House of Torture. You can go back, you can go to the 80s, you can go to the 90s, look at some of the top heels, look how they were getting heat, look how they were distracting the ref, how they were cheating in the match, and you can have compelling matches and get heat. I don't know why it's this thing of like, oh, you want to get heat, you have to suck. Like the whole thing with the Young Bucks and John Moxley. Oh, we're going to get heat by having bad matches and purposely being bad. Like, no, that's dumb. Like, you can have a good match and still be a good heel and get heat. So I don't know where this whole theory came of, like, you have to be bad, you have to do all this stuff to get heat and not have good matches. And so this match was just super frustrating and super deflating going into the main event, which ended up being a great matchup, but like I was in such a like disappointed state. It was really hard to enjoy Takeshita Sabre.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you guys the truth. I don't even know if that match was great or not. I've heard it was. I heard it was much better than the first match. I watched it, and I was in such a state. When you say, Fraser, that like that state of disbelief lasted like for the first 10 minutes for other people, it never subsided for me.
It's still there, right?
Yeah, I was just like, God, no matter what fucking happens, EVIL is in the finals. This is such a gut punch that I probably have to go back and rewatch Sabre and Takeshita too, because I just didn't enjoy it, and it's no fault of theirs whatsoever. From, when you're watching a wrestling match, even if you're not paying full attention, if you've watched it for a long time, you hear like the crowd come up and you hear you're like, they're working hard. This is probably good, but I can't really be fully involved and invested. I know that that's not a great answer for someone that reviews New Japan week to week, but I literally was just so blown by what happened that I couldn't even begin to invest myself into Takeshita and Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, I'm again, we'll come on to the final night. I'm slightly more chilled on this whole EVIL stuff. It's pro wrestling at the end of the day, so I just pay for a ticket and try and have a good time. But the one thing that sticks out to me about Zack Takeshita was that bump they did at the end of the top turnbuckle, and I went, Jesus, I thought somebody's dead. I'm not even sure which one it is, but that was pretty brutal. I thought again that was a fantastic match. It was somewhat impaired, although it kind of sounds a bit stupid to say that the result was so obvious given what had just happened before. Nothing is really obvious, but given Zack had beat Takeshita and Osaka during the round robin, you kind of thought, and it's champ, right? You thought, Takeshita's surely going to get this one. So it felt relatively safe for me, and I quite liked Takeshita. So I was happy to see that. But I thought that was an excellent match. I still think there's that question of match ordering. Like, would it have been a more fulfilling experience? Would people remember the match better if that went first versus, just what the Josh and the Jeremy rant actually about the EVIL match, whether that should have gone on last and everyone walks home super pissed and doesn't want to buy a ticket for the final if you don't already have one. But yeah, I thought Zack Takeshita was outstanding. And the other thing that I could see live, and I imagine it's there on TV as well, but I really got the sense Zack was highly motivated for that. I think this whole question of, how much a House of Torture getting, not just in these top matches, but even on that card had 8 or 9 matches, I think. Just looking at your notes, 9. 4 of them were House of Torture matches, right? And I think at one stage it was 3 in a row. So it's not even just the top of the card, right? They're fucking absolutely everywhere. And Zach came out like, I'm going to give you some of that fucking G1 technical hard-hitting shit. And I thought that was exactly it. It's just a shame for a lot of people that it wasn't very easy to fully indulge in it at the time.
Yeah, and you know, I was pretty sure that Takeshita was winning also, but yeah, after EVIL winning, because they did tease EVIL versus Zach, and so after EVIL won, I'm like, oh my gosh, like they really were teasing that, like Zach's about to win and beat Takeshita again, and then we're gonna have EVIL Zach in the finals, which usually their matches go like 30 seconds because Zach is always catching EVIL. I'm like, what's that gonna look like? Is EVIL gonna then beat Zach to win the G1 and then get a title match? I wasn't certain that Takeshita was winning after the EVIL win, but yeah, it was really hard to get in the match. I'm probably gonna rewatch it because I know it was a great match, but it was just hard for me to fully get into it. Like I don't know what to rate it. Like I'm gonna have to watch it again. But yeah, the Raging Fire top rope spot was insane. Zach came down. It's actually more of a brain buster, essentially. I know there's a lot of complaints online about the way that Zach sold the move and how he came down, but I thought, yeah, it was a crazy spot. I thought Zach sold it well. And overall, I mean, the spots that they did in this match, I thought it did blow. I can say it did blow away the first match, the league match they had. And I guess they were holding back for this match because, yeah, this match was way better and they killed it. I just don't know what to rate it because I was in such a weird mood watching it. So I'm definitely going to rewatch. I think it'll definitely be probably a contender for a match of the year in our awards.
Well, one final observation, if I can make it, and maybe I've come across on New Japan World, I don't know, but in that first 10 minutes or so, where live, the vibe was a bit weird and everyone was still like, the fucking EVIL's in the final or whatever, Zach seemed to be notably pissed off. Times where he had brief control segments and he went across to the ropes and said, hey, I'm the fucking heavyweight world champion or whatever. Show me some respect kind of thing. He's like wanting the crowd to get into the match because he knew at the time it was a good match, but nobody seemed to be vibing with it. So I think like it appeared to affect him in particular, right? Because he would have known it was going to be his last outing and he was going to make it a big one. But I think unfortunately for him, he would have felt that a certain percentage of the match, maybe almost all of it, I don't know, was severely hampered by what had happened before.
Yeah. And we did have some questions here. Rambo and Slam Pig saying, should Gato be imprisoned or would exile be enough? Def Triangle 720 saying, at this point, do you think the booking regime needs a clean sweep? Maybe it's me, but I don't feel any excitement towards much of the programs in the company. I don't feel like we are trying anything new or creative. Feels like a laborious loop that we're in. Dark Soldier says, when are we all storming the Capitol? I mean, Gato's house together with pitchforks.
Yeah, I 100,000% agree with all of your shared sentiments, and I don't have anything more to add to it other than you are all correct.
Yeah, go ahead, Fraser. You got something?
No. You go first, Jeremy. I just got to recap while you're doing that exactly which questions you're talking about. I'm looking through different points here, so go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff, and we've been saying it for a while now. I think it is time for Gato and whoever's in that creative room, Dick Togo, Jado, Kikuchi, Tenzan, Han, I don't know, whoever's in that creative room, whoever's in there, just get them out of there. I don't know who's all in that room. Get them out of there. Like they are clearly just uninspired, and again, the quiet quitting booking from Gato, and yeah, this was just a frustrating end of the tournament with some of these decisions.
I think for me, I'll leave that stuff till after we talk about the final, to be honest, because I think sort of talking about the adequacy or otherwise of the booking probably makes more sense in the context of the final and the result.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into the final night then. Night 19, Sunday, August 17th, once again in Ariake Arena. This time, attendance of 6,870, again, compared to historic crossover 2022. That's down from the 7,102. And then last year's final was in Ryogoku with an attendance of 8,056, so down from that number as well. On this card, I'm going to talk about some of the undercard stories that were happening here. So opening match, we had Yasuda and Zane J defeating Shomakato and Tetsuya Matsumoto. So they're kind of bringing back Zane J and Matsumoto onto the tour these last couple of nights and kind of reigniting their Young Lion feud. Then we had Satoshi Kojima and Taichi defeating Katsuya Murashima and Togi Makabe. And then we had the big post-match angle here. We had Dave Finlay walking down to the stage. We had some rap music playing. The Tron says Knockout Brothers, and out comes the former Youngblood, Oscar, and Yuto Ice make their way down to the ring. They lay out everybody. You know, they Taichi 1/2 tag champions. You know, they essentially stake their claim there. And Yuto hits a big right hand to Taichi, and they hit two of their double team maneuvers on Taichi. The last one, a big kick followed by a big tombstone pile driver there. And Yuto and Oscar leave everybody laying. They take out Taichi or Taka as well. And then, they stand tall with Dave Finlay on the ramp, throw up the Too Sweet, and it's official new members of the Bullet Club War Dogs, the Knockout Brothers, Yuto Ice, and Oscar. What are you guys' thoughts on the return of Oscar and Yuto?
Maybe I can go first and flick it across to Josh. I'd probably have two things to say, or three things. One, the live crowd really went for this. So this was a very, very popular return. Yuto Ice seems to be this quite intriguing rap star kind of stuff. They've got this culture in Japan called Yankee culture. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but that sort of squatting rap pose is associated with that type of individual. And I don't know if you saw the backstage segment, but Yuto Ice has gone all in, right? Like,
let's get high.
Yeah, we're gonna make some green or whatever he's talking about and stuff. Right? Probably be dealing drugs in the ring soon. But so he that was really cool. And then the other aspect of the live thing was just how big Oscar was. Like, everyone was saying, "Oh, Dekai," and Dekai is like, you make that comment when somebody's super big. So I think that went down really, really well, actually. So backstage comment and that. And the other thing I thought, actually, just from the live perspective, I was going into the final thinking, fuck, they're going to do so many angles today because, Tanahashi's retirement opponent, all these other things. And this was like match 2, right? And it's like, boom, we've already had Yuto Ice come out and Oscar. So I've got about 6 or 7 more hot angles to come. And maybe not quite the case. So that's what I have to say.
Josh, what you got on Yuto Ice and Oscar?
I mean, I feel like it's an upgrade from what we had seen from Yuto Nakashima in the past. I don't know if it's necessarily a tip-top guy level sort of gimmick for him, but it's also not necessarily, his finished end stage product. I mean, there might be the ability to grow out of there, but as soon as you see it, you do start thinking like, early stage Yujiro Takahashi, and hopefully he doesn't get pigeonholed into like some sort of stereotypical, position based off of that. And hopefully he delivers in the ring. We've heard good things about Youngblood since they've been gone. I did think it was a little interesting how like Oscar Luebe didn't necessarily fit a particular like gimmick himself. He's just, kind of there as the heavy. And then you got Yuto Nakashima like all gimmicked out, and they don't necessarily like match in that term, but we'll see what the act is, because we've been waiting for these guys to come back for a while now. the tag division is more than open, and they're probably going to win those tag titles like almost immediately.
Yeah, I enjoyed the debut, and I agree with your sentiments about Yuto Ice's gimmick. I mean, I will say, like, he had a lot of charisma. I feel like, yeah, like you said, Fraser, like, he was all in, like, he's in the gimmick, and, unlike a lot of the other young guys, I feel like he came off as a star. Like, he came off different, unique. He owned it. Yeah, he's grabbing the chain. He's doing the little dance on the ring, and like there was a lot of energy about him, and I thought it was awesome. But like Josh was saying, typically when you look at a gimmick like that, that does kind of end up being more of a mid-card gimmick, and it did kind of remind me of Yujiro as well. And I'm like, so it's can either go two ways. Like, it's either going to get him super over, and he is going to like eventually become like a top star, or it's going to go the other way and he's going to become like this mid-card kind of comedy act, and it's going to be kind of a laugh kind of thing. And so I hope it's not that, but night one, yeah, I thought he showed a lot of charisma, a lot of energy. And then Oscar, man, I've been high on Oscar since he's a young lion. I thought, with his size and towards the end of his excursion, he was able to show a lot more of the power moves and the chops. I felt like he had a lot of potential in the ring. One thing, man, he needs to do the Kevin Nash foot over the rope. He was getting in the ring like he's a regular, young boy. No, man, put the foot over the rope like you're, Kevin Nash, man. You're this big, tall dude. Really show that. And so, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what comes in the ring. And yeah, so far, like Josh said, yeah, a lot of their excursion stuff seems to be what's really good. And so, yeah, they got a big first test coming up with Taichi and Tomohiro Ishii. And like, if they don't have a great match against that team, then we know we're in trouble.
Yeah, I'd just say one or two sort of final things. And you mentioned the word there, Jeremy, which I had in my notes against a lot of these other young guys. That the perennial question is, why are they not getting over? Why are they not getting pushed? Charisma, right? And I think there are two guys that are very much junior to the Reiwa generation, as they have been labeled, which is Daiki Nagai and Yuta Ice. And it's like, fuck, get Yuya, Oya, or Oiwa rather, Shota, maybe even Bolton and Callum. It's a little bit harsh, but I would put them in a room and say, listen to Nagai-kun and Yota Ice and figure out how to have some fucking personality, because that is one of the biggest reasons, I think, that those guys are not getting over. And it somewhat differentiates Tsuji. I don't think Tsuji's a 100% version of that, but he has far more charisma than the rest of them. And I think, people are forever asking that question about, why does it not happen? Why doesn't Ghetto book this guy? Blah, 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 blah. But that's the biggest thing, right? And the crowd went mental for Yota Ice, and he didn't really do anything, right? He just stood around and did a few poses and stuff. He didn't do any huge moves. And it's a very dated reference, but my final comment will be, I hope Vanilla Ice is not offended by Yota Ice using the ice. That they've had that discussion and cleared it. But yeah, I think charisma, super important, and for me, that's the answer to what is missing with a lot of these so-called next generation guys.
Yeah, perfectly said there. And we have some questions. Doc says, also, will Yuto Ice break out before any of the other Reiwa? And we just kind of touched on that with your comments, Fraser, and what I was saying. And I mean, again, if it leans the right way, like he has that personality, if the crowd really continues to buy into it, I think he could lap a lot of those guys.
Yeah, and I think, like, I totally get the point about this gimmick, maybe in a year's time people are going to be sick of it and he's kind of stuck, in match 3 or whatever. But I think, based on what we saw before, it wasn't like you would have expected him to return and get a title shot at Dominion or something like that, right? Like, he wasn't ever going to be that kind of guy. So I think this is a good path in. And yeah, they're an odd couple, definitely. They don't have matching gear or whatever, but I think the charisma and being Japanese for Yota, combined with Oscar's size and athletic ability, I think these guys will have a good run for quite some time. And then I think that's a potential launch pad to something better in the future.
Yeah,
I'm optimistic.
Then we had a question from Lesh Commission 7252. Who has more drip, Sonata or Yuto Ice?
Wow, it's tough question. I thought the most random part of Sonata is he joins House of Torture and then basically becomes like a fashion model in the House of Torture, right? It's like just so weird. It's awesome. And as I think is one or two other podcasts have mentioned, like maybe we are, and I've met him once or twice before, a long time ago now, but Sonata does have charisma, and I think maybe at least character-wise is seeing something a bit closer to maybe what he's got. So his entrances were huge, right? So whenever he came out, like everyone switches around, looks backwards if you're not facing the ring ramp to get photos of whatever his latest crazy outfit is, if it's the mirror ball one or he's got his guitar and stuff. So he's super impressive. And then, yeah, Yolta Ice just because he was brand new, right? But I think if just for his sheer commitment to the bit, and maybe you saw, but Okamoto-san, the Tokyo Sports reporter, said that the collective cost of Sonata's uniform was 5 million yen, which is about 30,000 US bucks for his total gear costs across the tournament. So this got quite a bit of attention as well. So maybe for sheer commitment to the bit, I'd tip it to Sonata.
Yeah, that is just so weird that Sonata, because we used to joke on the show all the time because he would never change his gear. It'd be like once a year, once every 2 years that he would change his gear. And like now he's dropping, $30K on gear to switch out every night, which is very weird. But yeah, I think we can't fully compare Sonata and Yuto Ice yet because we only got one night of Yuto. He did have the bling on and the fresh white fit, so we don't know what the ring gear is gonna look like. I'm assuming it's gonna be very icy, very blingy, and let's give it a few months, and then I think we could really compare Sonata and Yuto Ice.
Well, I think it's a good question, though, right? You can see a good feud happening there, right? Like sort of bling versus bling, and it should be a good time. So looking forward to Yolta Ice when he's coming. What is it? Kobe is this next big appearance for the tag team match. So.
Yeah, Destruction. Yep. So that'll be big. MJ says, "Will Yuto Ice be our generational savior? And do you agree? The higher the sock, the downer the fool."
I see Yolta Ice definitely adding a bit of like much needed charisma, personality, excitement to the card. Is he going to be the savior that's going to suddenly boost attendances back to what they were? No, I don't think so. But definitely in terms of, optimizing your resources, I think what they've come back with there looks very, very good. And I think there's a high level of interest from the Japanese fan base for that. And as I mentioned, it's not, in a Japanese context, it's not as simple as just kind of a US rapper. It's this Yankee culture. And I'd encourage people to look that up because that's exactly what he is doing. And it's quite a fascinating read about it. It's quite a popular subculture here in Japan.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we can claim him as the generational savior yet, but like we were saying again, like if this really catches on, yeah, he could lap a lot of these guys. And then last question here from Reddit user Fecal Soup: thoughts on the returning Yuto and Oscar and having them join the War Dogs? Yuto looked like he was about to drop a diss track on everyone following his post-match comments.
I do think it's interesting that they're getting injected into the War Dogs just because they don't really seem to match the overall vibe of the guys that have been in there thus, like, especially most recently. And it almost is questionable as to whether they need new members unless you're kind of speculating or anticipating that maybe not all of the members are going to stick around long term. We haven't seen Clark Connors in a while, and there's always the speculation about the future status of Gabe Kidd. So I'm wondering if they're being brought in as like guys that you want to develop in case you potentially lose other guys, because it's not like they're bringing in juniors. They're bringing in like a heavyweight tag team. Granted, they don't really have a dedicated heavyweight tag team within the group currently. but they could at any time. They've got makeshift guys that are ready to go and, be thrown together if need be. So I do think it's interesting from that standpoint.
Yeah, and Finley had some interesting backstage comments where he was like, he's seen a lot of other groups investing in young talent. He talked about, TMDK and Fujita. He talked about unaffiliated with Daiki Nagai and how all these groups are, grabbing young lions. So he think it was time to invest in the future of War Dogs, and that's kind of the play to get the Knockout Brothers.
I mean, I just say two things. I think, Finley always talks about bringing gold, bringing bodies. Your Tice has brought a lot of gold already, right? And then secondly, I suppose the other way of thinking about it is to say if they weren't in the War Dogs and they were running that gimmick, where would you put them? I'm not saying you can't put them anywhere else, but, that might be the next question, right? And I suppose, maybe Team DK, I don't know, but maybe it's a reflection of the state of the roster, but I'm sort of somewhat struggling to find at least an obvious option for where they go for the War Dogs.
I think the answer to that question is you need a shakeup in terms of just the face heel alignment and groups that exist in general. Do they fit into any of the current groups? No. Other than this one, probably no. Although I guess you could throw them in United Empire if you were inclined to. But at the end of the day, what needs to happen is we need a shift. We need a change up of what groups even exist. And I feel like they would be a fine addition to any new group that you're trying to start off and debut. And that could hypothetically be a better fit than War Dogs. They don't scream, Bullet Club to me necessarily.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the War Dogs kind of had that, also there's a lot of LA Dojo connection. There's just a lot of just kind of these tough kind of beer drinking, crazy dudes. And also we've only seen one appearance of Yuto and Oscar. So I feel like Oscar more could fit is I think it's Yuto's kind of flashy gimmick that's a little interesting, but
I think it's a color thing with you, Jeremy.
Oh man. But yeah, so
I was just gonna say one last thing back to that whole faction shakeup thing and Josh talk. Like I mentioned on Saturday, I did sort of my pre-match analysis to my uninterested girlfriend about what was not going to happen on Saturday with these surprises. On Sunday, I said, before the show, there should be quite a lot of angles happening. And one of them I thought would be some sort of factional shakeup. Why is the post-LIJ unaffiliated? That seems like a very much a transitional type labeling. You've got Callum Newman talking about United Empire. You've got Olkan going on about it. It's on its knees and about to finish. So I was somewhat surprised not to see anything on that front as well. So we seem to continue this period where you feel like things are going to shake up. And, Finley's been talking about Nice pointing in, or Guns pointing in rather. So I think that's something that factional realignment or shake-up or whatever I think is needed. And I was somewhat surprised, again, on this show, that maybe the angle we've just been talking about. And I know there's a few other smaller ones, but it's probably the biggest of the lot, which is surprising for me.
Yeah. So moving on the card, we had Master Wato, Toriano, and Yo defeating El Desperado, Taguchi, and Yoshihashi. So a couple storyline points here. Taguchi has been, trying to get in a never six-man title match on these undercard matches, and he was hoping to pin the never six-man champions, Wato Yo and Master Wato here to get a title match. But what actually ended up happening was Yo pinning El Desperado. So now we're going to get Yo challenging for the junior title. So we've got our junior title program established coming out of this match. Then following that, we had Don Fale, Sanada, and Kanemaru defeating ELP, Bolton, and Tiger Mask. And this was continuing a story that happened the night before, with Fale laying out Bolton and, staking his claim for the never title. So we had more of that follow-up here in post-match, Boltin and Fale getting into it. And so that's our next big Never program. Don Fale going to be challenging Boltin Oleg for the Never Openweight title.
Remember how not awesome that match was?
Yeah. And considering it's a rematch and Boltin won the first one.
If I can give you a very brief anecdote. On the way back from Hamamatsu, which is on the Wednesday, by that stage, Fale hadn't wrestled a single match. He's from New Zealand, right? So am I. And on the way back, we had to change trains, and I saw him on the platform. He came over and had a chat. I said, "Oh, how's the tour been and stuff?" And he's like, I thought he's going to say, "Oh, it's been like a paid holiday, right?" Because all he has to do is like sick, and he's like, "Oh, the travel's really hard and stuff." And then I said, "Oh, but you don't have to wrestle, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, but tomorrow I've got a match, which is at Corcoran, right?" I said, "Oh, you actually have to do something, right?" So, Don Fale's got the working boots on. Who knows? Like maybe he was, with all that sort of stuff that happened beforehand, maybe he was originally booked to actually be part of the G1. Whereas fan favorite Chase Owens, unfortunately, wasn't there to support EVIL at the end. But yes, Mr. Fale, I think, is all about proving who's a bigger guy. And I actually asked him, what were his thoughts on sort of crowd numbers and stuff. And one of his comments was, take it for what it is that he thought size was an issue. And he said, they need more guys like me, like, super big guys. Like these days, a lot of the guys who are heavies might have been juniors 10 years ago or something like that. So I'm just relaying these comments, but, that's what he said at the time.
Yeah, interesting comments. And we have kind of mentioned, maybe not quite guys like Fale, but more kind of, bigger bruiser guys. There kind of seems to be a hole in the roster for an archetype like that. We had a question here from Dark Soldier. Says, Sonata's entrance gears hurt my eyes. Does it do the same to you guys?
As somebody who goes to the shows and takes photos, like Sonata's a photographer's dream, right? Like he's always doing cool stuff. So I enjoy his entrances, and I quite like this whole Jeff Jarrett guitar stuff. It's totally random. It doesn't fit House of Torture at all, but it's like it's so random that it's cool. So I'm a fan.
Then moving on, we had Tanahashi, Shota Umino, and Yuya Uemura defeating United Empire team of Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, and Jacob Austin Young. So you had Tanahashi, teaming here with two guys that want to be the next ace. Then we have a United Empire that is falling apart, like you alluded to, Fraser Newman, several post-match comments, especially after losing this match, about wanting to, take over. He has the mental capacity to lead this group and change it. And he talked about his grandmother dying on the tour and not going home to visit family. He stayed on the tour and stayed with the unit. And I thought this was actually one of the best promos he's cut since being in New Japan. And then also we had Great O'Khan making comments about, the Empire going on the knees and they might not falling apart. And then you just have Jacob Austin Young there. So, so interesting stuff there. So it seems like there potentially could be maybe some kind of United Empire shakeup getting happening here. Well, they did lose the fall here to this ace team of Tanahashi, Umino, and Uemura. Then go ahead.
Jeremy, can I say something here? Yeah. Because I think for me, and maybe we'll come to Bushi Road and results and all that later, but the same day, and maybe you're going to talk about this later in the news section, but I think it's not a bad time to address it now. I was convinced, but again, I'm always sort of expecting more angles than what will really happen. But I was convinced Tanahashi's retirement opponent was going to be either walking out or on a VTR. And I was thinking, because what they did, and you probably know this, but New Japan announced the official ticket prices for Wrestle Kingdom that same day of the final. And I don't know if you're up to speed on this or not. You probably are, but a front row seat to next year's Wrestle Kingdom will cost 100 million yen, which is about 35,000 US. Like, have I got the numbers right? I hope I do. 100 million yen. And that is going back to when I first came to Japan, and I know it's Tanahashi's retirement thing, right? So there is that added special thing over and above a regular Tokyo Dome show. But if you were lucky and you got the lottery right, when I first came here 10 years ago, you paid 5%, 1/20th of the price. So the price has been increased 20 times for that front row seat. And yes, you get a few perks. You get a photo with Tanahashi after the show and you get a special seat, blah, blah, blah. But 100 million yen, and let me do the math here because I don't want to embarrass myself to.
I don't think it's 100 million yen. I think it's just a million.
It's a million, yeah.
Oh, sorry. $1 million yen. Yes.
Because I was going to say like 100 million yen is like 676,000.
No. Sorry, the reason why Japanese and English numbers are confusing is because they use 10,000 as their base unit. So they call it hyakuman, which is 100 times 10,000. So yeah, my apologies. So 1 million yen, and then you divide that by about 150. So sorry, it's I got that completely wrong. Maybe you're gonna have to do some editing, Jeremy, or you can embarrass me. But this is like 6,000, 7,000 US bucks. Now maybe I don't know like what WWE and AEW and all that charge for front row seats over there, but that's astronomical in a Japanese context. And after the show, I told some Japanese fans, and they're all like, in a Japanese fashion, so obviously not using these words, but what the fuck was basically the response there. And even for me, it's like, what can you get for that kind of money? And do I really want to spend it on a front row seat? But I thought the perfect thing to do if you're going to, because one other thing that's important about tickets going on sale for Tokyo Dome, normally by now, halfway through the G1, the fan club lottery would have started. So all I've done at the moment is just announce on the day of the final what the price will be. You don't even know when the fan club lottery is going to be. So that hasn't even been announced. So I think the strategy is we'll smash your wallet on G1 first. And once you've financially recovered and escaped bankruptcy, you can go and buy, your front row seat. Or even the second and the third row prices are very, very high as well. So I thought, why not, if you've got somebody big, now's your time, right? You've got a huge audience. Your tickets are going to be going on sale soon. Create some buzz, but nothing. I was very, very surprised by that. But I think, Jeremy, you're definitely going to have to cut out that 100 million.
Yeah, and when I looked at those prices, it did seem very interesting. And when you look back at, like you mentioned, the history of when things were announced, like I think it was even last year, they had already announced like Wrestle Kingdom week, and like you already knew like when the Stardom shows were happening, when the Fan Fest was happening, when the press conference was happening, when's the show's happening. It's like, Josh and I are planning to go, and like we're trying to lock down dates and flights and hotels, and it's like, I don't know, like what are the ticket prices, like what are the other shows happening? I mean, obviously we know 1-4 and Dash, but like I want to see the other stuff, like what's happening the rest of the time there, and like nothing. It's crazy that we're just getting ticket prices, and there's still no announcement of like what's the rest of the week looking like. Is it going to be a double dome? Is it not a double dome? Is it just Dash at Corkin? Is it at Ota? Like none of that information being out yet seems really weird.
Yeah.
Can I just say one last thing and then flick it over to Josh? Just the two big selling points that they're using, and this was in the Bushiroad reports as well. One is obviously Tanahashi's retirement match. Still, we don't know who the opponent will be. And second is Aaron Wolf's debut. He wasn't at Ariake. There was nothing around him. He did some, seconds and, sort of took some towels to the back and moved some chairs around and stuff. But it's like, if these two things are your big selling points and you want to charge those prices, then get your shit together and start advertising that now. Like one thing that pissed me off last year, and I can answer the question that's just flashed up in a second, is that Hiromu Naito was a draw match, and they fucking announced that during the middle of the World Tag League in December, right? Yep. It's like Japanese people have work and other things to do and family commitments. You can't just late December throw on another draw match at that late stage. And the question on the screen is this the highest I've ever charged for front row seat at Wrestle Kingdom? Yes, absolutely. So I'm just trying to think back again, compared to 10 years ago, this is 20 times the price. So you paid 50,000 yen. And you went into a lottery and you could end up anywhere between row 1 to row 6. So you're kind of luck of the draw type thing, right? But maybe the evolution of New Japan ticket prices is worth understanding. So when Mr. Muto did his retirement thing, he slammed the ticket prices on the first 3 or 4 rows to make sure his retirement bank account was secure to go out eating expensive yakiniku every night. And after that, New Japan realized, because they were on it, right? Okada bet Kiyomiya in about 2 seconds or whatever it was, and Naito was in time match. They caught no shit. We can be charging the rich marks a lot more for those front row seats, so they went up a lot. I'm trying to remember though, I think maybe the prices went up, like say to 200, maybe. 200,000. So this would even be a 5-fold increase on anything we've seen before. This is not just the highest. This is just intergalactic into another stratosphere. And just for context, a front row seat at the G1 for the final would have cost you 100,000 yen. So these prices are 10 times that, right? You could go to 10 G1 finals for the same price as the front row seat for Tanahashi's retirement, which I acknowledge is a special thing. But, the multiples there, I'm kind of curious to see whether or not they can sell that, because I know some of my more wealthy friends that support pro wrestling, and they're saying, 1 million yen, what the hell? So anyway, put it over to Josh.
I don't have much more to add there.
Yeah, Doc says he's still expecting Nakamura to be Tanahashi's opponent. Well, I mean, that's... I'm
right now, I'm personally just expecting it to be Naito.
My money's on Chase Owens, but he wanted on the G1 tour, so perhaps it won't be him. No, I think maybe if I talk about it, like what Japan fans want, is definitely Nakamura. Like that is consistent. But everyone's got that whole, wow, we've got the relationship with AEW, he's a WWE guy, is that really going to work? Then, of course, I still have not forgotten that mysterious Instagram thing where Rock's playing around with the Rubik Cube or something with a New Japan t-shirt on. I mean, in the spirit of 2025 New Japan, that could well mean nothing. But I think there could be something there. And then on Naito, he's been doing quite a few talk shows in recent times. I think he's only wrestled once in the UK since he had the Dontaku match. And he's basically said to the latest talk show that he got 2 pieces of work done after the Dontaku. He got his knees done, and all the surgery went really well for that. And then, he's had that eye and blurred vision for a long time, and he got his 4th and final version of that operation. But sadly, that did not go that well, apparently. And he said his vision when he was at that UK match was not particularly flash, and it's giving him anxiety. So my only concern there is he physically capable of not? And again, that was another one I thought maybe might come back at Ariake, maybe not in ring, but maybe VTR or something like that, because he has name dropped Tanahashi once or twice, but not to be. And I also think because maybe I'm just allowing my thoughts to get away with me, but that whole unaffiliated thing seems like a bit of a placeholder, something else is coming, right? But again, nothing did.
Yeah. Well, speaking of unaffiliated, that was the next matchup. We had the War Dogs team of Dave Finlay, Drilla Maloney, Gato, and Taiji Ishimori defeating the unaffiliated team of Daiki Nagai, Hiromu, Shingo, and Yota Tsuji. And a point that you mentioned earlier, Fraser, Daiki Nagai, this guy was getting big pop crowd reactions in this match. The crowd was totally behind him at points in the match and in the beginning of the match when he wanted to start the match. And a guy that's a young lion, hasn't even graduated yet, is getting big crowd chants and reactions. That was awesome to see.
Yeah. And backstage, he's a magician, right? He needs to take, there's 5 guys I mentioned before, Yuya, Oiwa, and Ko, to fucking promo class. Like he's going backstage and telling Kato-san, oh, you should fuck off back to your hometown and open up a pudding shop. And then it's like, can you ever imagine any of these other guys that have said, the next generation, they could never do that in a million years. He's throwing basketball shots with the water bottle and He's joining in with Takagi's kita. He's fine, and he's a tiny guy, right? And he's a good wrestler and everything. But what sets him apart, like straight away, and Murishima's got a little bit of this as well, is personality and charisma. That's what those guys need. The only concern I have on that particular point, I don't know that you can teach charisma, to be honest. I think it's a bit more of an innate thing. You've either got it or you don't. It's not quite that black and white, but, I think Nagai and Yota Ice, that's the direction we need, as opposed to all these other guys who are perfectly capable in ring, but maybe don't quite have the personality that really gets you fully invested, is at least my opinion.
Yeah, and then post-match, we did have a brawl between Shingo and Gabe, and then the rest of the unaffiliated and War Dogs are kind of getting into each other's faces, and we'll see from the Destruction Tour that we're having a feud, like I mentioned, between War Dogs and unaffiliated, and all these guys will be facing off in singles matches come next month.
And I don't know if you heard Shingo in that promo that he cut. He talked about Gabe Kidd not being around and that they need to strip him of the white belt, basically.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to make tour dates, like, but you're doing Forbidden Door, like, nah, get off that belt.
I get a sense, I mean, who knows, right? But I think there's an element of real in that, right? That's Japanese senpai stuff, right? And Shingo is definitely one of those. So I think there is some real heat around the fact you've got the G1 finals going on, and one of your guys who's the savior of company being announced for Forbidden Door before that weekend and is not there. That's not well appreciated in a Japanese company, I would say.
Lowe's knows to bring your vision to life, it's important to find the right color. That's why MyLowe's Rewards members get a free Valspar paint or exterior stain sample to test your look to confidently refresh your space. Offer valid in-store only 8/7 to 8/20. Limit 1 per customer while supplies last. Discount taken in time of purchase. See associate for details. Rewards program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Yeah, so moving on to the next matchup, semi-main event, we had the House of Torture team of Doki, Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi defeating the TMDK team of Hartley Jackson, Kosei Vegeta, Roy Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. So they were really playing up the upset win that Narita had over Zack. So a lot of this match was focused on Zack and Narita and building a potential feud there. And then just the rest of the house teaming up against the TMDK guys. And we had Kosei Vegeta, issuing a challenge for the junior tag titles later on with, so it would be Vegeta and Robbie Eagles will be challenging Sho and Doki coming up for the junior tag titles. So setting up, TMDK versus House of Torture going into the fall.
I was going to say something, but I cannot remember what it was.
No worries. We had a question from Rambones. He said, what do you want to see happen with Oiwa? I think he took some big steps forward. I'm eager to see him having something to work with this fall.
I don't have the faith right now. Like, I know this is it's not the most compelling, audio to keep saying that it's hard to predict where these guys are going to end up, but it's like, it's a vote of no confidence in the booking and the creative. Like, I have no reason to suspect that they're actually going to get him to somewhere meaningful within that time frame.
My take on Oiwa, I think there's two parts. I think in ring he did a very good job in the G1, and I think he altered some people's perceptions about his capabilities. And I was there for that match at Korakuen, which a lot of people talked about with Uemura. That was very, very good. But coming back to the charisma point, like for me, I definitely agree. The booking has been all over the place with a lot of these guys. But at the same time, I think there is the onus on the rest of themselves to get themselves over. And you see with Daiki Nagai, you see with Yota Ice, you see it to some extent with Murashima as well. Oiwa's bland. Like, he needs more personality. Yeah. And I think, again, like one of the things that kind of told me this, you would have seen this, Jeremy. I'm not sure if you watched the backstage or not, Josh, but like when Tanahashi went backstage with Shota on one side and Uemura on the other, and Tanahashi's kind of smiling in the middle as the sort of, the proud shacho and father of all the New Japan, and then Uemura and Shota are just sort of standing there like foot soldiers, just doing what Senpai says. But Oiwa is just a classic example, right? He's got the look, he's got the wrestling ability. I think he needs that charisma hook as well. I think that's just as important as any booking. I mean, even if you book a guy super strong, if he's got no personality, it's like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I don't know what's immediately next. What's the next best steps? Because it's kind of, I don't know where the booking really sees him. I mean, I think he would be a great never open weight guy, but clearly we got to push Don Fale first. But I mean, I think him and Zach, I obviously know Zach the champion now, but I thought they had something with him and Zach as a tag team, and doing something there. But yeah, I don't know what to do with him next. So let's move on to the G1 Climax 2025 final match. We had the Alpha Konosuke Takeshita with our good friend Rocky Romero defeating EVIL along with all the House of Torture in 26 minutes and 26 seconds. What did you guys think about the big final matchup here?
I definitely want to go last on this one, if I may. I really keen to hear what you guys say before I hit my turn.
I really think that this was a travesty, to be honest with you, because it became very clear what they were attempting to make happen with this match, and it backfired, and it was essentially, it wound up being a sacrifice at the altar of the G1 Climax finals. And what I mean by that is, we've heard for a while now that management is very high on Takeshita. There's this like potential push that's being organized between the three different companies he's working for to maybe push him to the forefront, especially like in the Japanese market, and make that be something major for, everybody involved. And that's great. Takeshita is one of the best wrestlers in the world. We've advocated over the past year that he should be put in that sort of position. But the challenge that they ran into with this match was that this is still, at the end of the day, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and, they'll get behind a guy in other contexts, but when it's the G1 Climax finals, historically speaking, the New Japan crowd, if there is an outsider or quote unquote invader that comes into the company, they don't get behind them in that particular style of match. And that proved to be the case here against EVIL. And I think that that's part of what the company anticipated. They sort of knew that, like, for instance, if he had been in there with any of the young guys in front of this crowd on this night, they would have mopped him in terms of like crowd reactions. And the company doesn't want that. So it's very clear why we wound up with the final that we eventually wound up with. And don't get me wrong, House of Torture, they got involved. And when they got involved, there were boos. People didn't like that. But by and large, throughout the course of this match, anytime EVIL hit anything that wasn't, underhanded tactic, but if he hit a lariat or if he did any sort of like maneuver that was successful, the crowd like were oohing and awing for it. And there was definitely vocal pockets of fans throughout the match that were cheering for EVIL as well, it's just so unexpected, even knowing what the history of crowd reactions is on for this particular match. I was still just so shocked to see the quasi rejection of Takeshita. Now, that's not to say that he's done by any means. And, this isn't like an indictment on him. It's just that I think management knew was going to happen. They tried to book against it. And it's really unfortunate because it's, at the end of the day, it's the G1 Climax finals. And there's a particular working level that you expect historically. And they didn't book for that to try and enthrall the audience by putting two of the best workers in there. They did something that was full of gaga to try and babyface Takeshita. And one thing I really hate about that whole thing is that I felt like if this was where you were trying to get, why weren't you babyfacing Takeshita the entire tournament? Why wasn't he cutting impassioned promos talking about how, you know, this is where he's always wanted to be and stuff like that, stuff that would endear him to the audience? Like, that hasn't been happening. So by the time you get here, you could have turned it around and made him like the savior and the company guy, but instead he's just been an outsider, and that's how the crowd, you know, perceives him. Was the match bad? No. But at the same time, in terms of the quality of G1 Climax finals, there's never been a quote unquote bad final. What's bad for a G1 Climax is an average ass 3-star match. And there's probably been, in the whole history of the company, maybe 3 of those. And this is going to be another one. So we are literally talking about, even if it wasn't a quote unquote bad match, by the standards of the G1 Climax, this is a bottom 3, potentially worst ever match for the history of the tournament. So it's not good, you know, and it also, it didn't work, you know, it hurt a lot of people to do things this way. And it's not the booking that brought this company to the forefront.
Yeah, this felt very much like a situation of like, all right, you know, Daniel Bryan's getting cheered. We don't want him to get cheered, and we're trying to work our way around it, and it's not working. Or we want to push Roman Reigns, but people are booing him. Let's put The Rock out there next to him at Royal Rumble. Oh crap, they're still booing. It just felt like, yeah, they tried to create this whole master plan to make sure Takeshita gets booed. It's like, yeah, we'll put him up against our top heel in EVIL. But yeah, I think they really underestimated. And again, like you mentioned, Josh, not looking back to their own history, that they're going to want the New Japan guy. And EVIL's a guy that went through the dojo. He's been on, you know, every tour. He went on excursion. He's been on every tour. Came back a part of one of the most popular factions in LIJ, and he's a guy, and as much as we don't like him, I mean, yeah, he's there night in, night out. He's on all the road twos. He's on, you know, the New Japan Road. He's on Destruction. He's on all this stuff, and he's, you know, a very consistent guy in what he does. And so also the crowd, yeah, they want that homegrown guy that they've seen from the very beginning and who represents, you know, New Japan in this matchup. And so, yeah, that whole crowd reaction totally backfired, and it was just a weird thing to see. Because most times in these big matches, it's like, yeah, the crowd's against EVIL because they want to see EVIL lose. And, you know, we saw a lot of that, you know, I think back to like, you know, Jingu Stadium, and when EVIL was champion to Bill Naito beating him, like the crowd wanted EVIL to lose. And like we talked about all these semi-main event, semi-final stuff where EVIL slips through is because, all right, we know that he's going to lose to set up the match we really want to see. And so, yeah, they went with actually putting EVIL through and not realizing, yeah, the crowds, they want to see their homegrown New Japan guy beat this DDT guy. You know, they used to call Kenta Noah trash. They want to see, you know, EVIL get rid of this DDT trash and prevail for, you know, Shinihan and for New Japan. And so, yeah, it was just a weird crowd dynamic, weird match. And like Josh said, like in a vacuum, like what they did worked, and it was a very still electric crowd. And yeah, the crowd, I mean, there were some Takeshita chants, there were some fans who were behind Takeshita, but yeah, it was definitely a lot of fans behind EVIL. And you know, there were some boos, a lot of boos for Takeshita when he was on offense, but then when they cheated, yeah, they would cheer for him and get behind him. But yeah, what you mentioned, like once they got rid of the House of Torture for good, and EVIL was like on offense and like doing big stuff and going for the EVIL, like crowd was like losing their mind and wanting EVIL to win, which is just like a crazy sentence to say.
And one thing I forgot to make mention of, we'll kick it to you, Fraser, is like in the past, whenever the Bullet Club or Bullet Club offshoot, whatever, has been involved in major situations like this, in pretty much short order, they've been ordered to the back. And in this case, they couldn't do that because they needed to get heat onto EVIL, which is what necessitated all that outside interference for such a prolonged period. And yeah, they kept the guys out by ring. I know they put them behind a barrier, but like it was almost immediate in the match. And there were points where you would think they could have thrown all those guys out and they still didn't do it. And it kept making the referees look bad. And I'm like, man, they're really pushing this agenda with even just the structure of the match. And it didn't make for compelling viewing, in my opinion.
What you got, Fraser?
Well, I was in the building, right? So maybe talk about the crowd for a second, because you referenced that. I mean, my take, and again, you guys go to shows in the US, right? And sometimes it depends on where you sit and stuff. But if I was to summarize, I'd just say at the beginning, maybe you get some very loud, isolated boos for Takeshita, because there's the hardcore New Japan fans. And again, Japanese generally quite mild and moderate, right? So it's only the really more hardcore ones that are going to make noise. Then sort of as the chicanery unfolded, there was more support for Takeshita, maybe 60-40, something like that, definitely mixed. And then when it went to one-on-one, you sort of had probably EVIL was at least 50-50, probably better. But I thought it might be worth just here explaining a little bit more about the Japanese perspective on things. And again, I'm not holding myself out as some sort of cultural expert. I'm not Japanese or anything, but I lived here for 10 years and been to shows all the time. So at least my take on things would be that, and you've seen this on social media since, but the perspectives inside and outside of Japan are very, very different, right? And I think it's important to remember as well that neither fan base is homogenous, right? And occasionally I think sometimes people say, oh, Japanese fans think this way. Well, actually, there's like 6,000 of them in the building and they happen to all think the same thing, right? And I think, it's subjective. There's no right or wrong. But as was referenced by Josh earlier, it's frustrating, but ultimately the product is sort of principally framed for the domestic audience, given the key contributor to top line sales is gate revenue.
Right.
So I thought the way I would think about how do Japanese people think about EVIL and how do they think about Takeshita? I'm talking more about characters, maybe more so than the match, but I'll get to the match later.
Yeah.
There's maybe three key values for Japanese that I think influenced on what they thought. One is respect, second is loyalty, and the third is work ethic. So if we take EVIL firstly, so you've talked about the whole dojo boy thing, and then you've effectively got, in a Japanese context, a New Japan versus DDT match. And it reminded me in 2018 when Tanahashi and Ibushi, I think it was 2018, I forgot that, right? Tanahashi was cornered by Shibata, Ibushi was cornered by Kenny, and that was another sort of New Japan versus DDT match, right? So EVIL has a loyalty card to play. Like you say, he's got a great work ethic, never injured, great conditioning, always there. Even in this year's Best of Super Juniors, he's going around on tour, being the henchman for Show and others. And I think one thing about EVIL that I think is at times overlooked is he's genuinely got good comedic talent, right? He's very innovative for some of the stuff that he does, like, printing off his winner T-shirt before the tournament started. I thought that was pretty cool. That time he went into the office and Charlton was there and he ordered them to change the website so he was a champion or the president or whatever. And then he even did that sort of like Chono tribute in the middle of the ring. And then they pan to Chono, who is actually smirking at the heel. And he realizes the camera's on him and he quickly, puts on his serious face again. But he's legitimately a funny guy. And I come back to the word I've used a number of times on this podcast, which is charisma. EVIL has that, right? Like, he's a charismatic dude. And you've got to remember, 5 years ago when he turned at fucking peak Corona time, right? Where the only heel reaction you could do was some crappy crowd chant. And, I'm not going to say he's the best wrestler in the world, but he is a good one. And I think for me, once it got down to one-on-one, it's the first time in 5 years that people had actually seen EVIL do his shit properly for once. And that's a big reason that the crowd got behind him. And that took me back to, I think it was 2017, I could be wrong, but I was in Osaka for that match that a lot of people talk about with EVIL beating Okada. And I'm sure as a wrestler himself, he would have relished the opportunity. I've been punching people in the balls for 5 years. I actually get to do some wrestling. That's kind of cool. So I think that dynamic was there as well. And I think sort of, if you take all of the above, just one line I hear a lot about EVIL, which kind of I think is very reductionist, but gets trotted out a lot, is House of Torture sell a lot of merch. It's way deeper than that, right? That's a symptom. That's not the reason. They're not pushing EVIL just because they think they can make another couple of grand at the merch stand. Then you come to Takeshita, and he's kind of like the perfect poison formula, right? Like he's got two, dare I say, forms of EVIL. One, he's from AEW, or he's an AEW wrestler, and there is genuine contempt here in Japan for Tony Khan and his spree of signings. And you get comments like, "Oh, he's not even here in Japan. Like he's going to come and win the G1, and then he's not even on the Destruction tour, which is in the next month, right?" And people say, "Oh, we aren't the branch of AEW," and I think the timing of Forbidden Door could not have been worse, to be 1 week later when everyone is saying, "What the fuck are AEW doing to us? This Nigel McGuinness guy, can you please explain who this is that's challenging for our belt, because I've never heard of him?" So you've got that part, and then of course you've got the second part, which is the DDT, right? So he's an outsider at two levels, and ironically, coming back to values, he's loyal to DDT, where I think financially, probably, AEW is putting more than enough money in his bank account, so he doesn't necessarily need to do that. But that's when I think you get real, genuine Japanese contempt for other companies. And you mentioned Kenta. Kenta is a very, very good analogy, right? Like, he came into, I think it was a 2019 G1.
Yep.
Shibata was his his second, right? And I think Gedo got that one right, because he came into the G1 as actual presented face, right? Because Shibata was genuinely loved, but I was sitting next to crowd members. He was getting a lot of boos, and I'm saying, he's a fucking Noah guy. Why is he a babyface? Right? But then the best thing that they did is they pushed him as a face for that tournament, and then at the final he goes and does a corner kick against Shibata and turns. And it's like, Gedo, back then I think you had your mojo and you knew what was going to happen, and he did that really well. Whereas you don't quite see that with Takeshita. I think the other thing that Japanese fans have an issue with when it comes to Takeshita is I don't think this whole he signed with New Japan as well has made much of a difference, to be honest. And not just the fact that he's one of three, but it was only a year ago he signed that contract. Anyone's saying, too much too soon kind of thing. At the same time, they do realize that purely as a wrestler, got very good power, athleticism, technical proficiency. And he's only 30, right? And a lot of people talk about these young guys. Go look up some of their ages, and Takeshita is not terribly different to most of the guys that are forever young, apparently. I think what's either going to make what happened at the G1 final more or less sensible. And of course, I totally get Josh's vibes. Like, I remember back to 2016 when I was fresh off the boat in Japan, and I was seeing all these magic matches with Marufuji and Nakashima and a healthy Tanahashi, Omega, Naito, all these guys, and you think, Jesus, now what am I doing? But G1 final, I agree, it was sacrifice. I did, though, I have to say that after the clown show was over and Superman Rocky Romero managed to clear out all bar one by himself, and it was like, he could clearly school some of these other guys out about how to deal single-handedly with the House of Torture. And then the other slightly weird one, which kind of made sense and didn't, is then Narita popped up, right? And Zach's obviously got this kind of potential title match going on, but fucking Takeshita knocked out Zach the night before, right? So it's like, why is he coming to help him? It was very, very weird. But I think I actually have to say that I enjoyed from minute 10 or whatever it was after the clown show was over until the end. I thought that was a really special period. I'm not saying it's vintage G1 final or anything like that, but I'd almost describe it as like beautiful chaos. It was such a weird feeling, but the crowd were into it. You can think whether you like that or you don't. That's totally up to every individual. And like Josh says, people like what they like and they don't like what they don't like. But that was my take on it. So I actually went out quite happy. And to be honest, even as a Takeshita fan, if Evil had won, I would have said the same thing. Like just the novelty of him winning and actually showing what he's got for the first time in 5 years. It was a really, really interesting experience.
Yeah, something else they probably could have tried that might have worked. Like you mentioned, Zach came out and got rid of Narita. I think it could have been maybe interesting if you had other guys who got screwed by House of Torture come out to get rid of those guys to try to like defend the sanctity of the final. Like you could have had Tsuji coming out to get rid of these guys. You could have had Uemura, Oiwa, a lot of these guys that got screwed by House of Torture and got eliminated. Like, you have them come out and kind of give Takeshita the nod, like, all right, like we don't really rock with you, but like you're actually trying to wrestle a good match, and we're gonna help you like get rid of these guys and kind of hand off approval kind of to Takeshita that way. I mean, I don't know if that fully would have worked, but I think that could have helped more the crowd to be like, oh, our New Japan guys are helping him and want to see a clean match. But yeah, it's
Cody versus Roman.
Yep.
Nice.
Oh man. Well, we have tons of questions here on this match. Let's run through these.
I already said my piece.
First question here from Doc. He says, Evil won the match because Takeshita tapped out. If you tap, there are no take backs. Red Shoes should have called the match, and he's referring to the spot where Evil had the Darkness Scorpion on Takeshita, and Takeshita pulled the Dragon Lee, did the one tap, but didn't do the three quick taps.
Yeah, that's a Brazilian tap for sure.
Yeah, he did the same thing at Hamamatsu against Ren Narita as well, actually. So a lot of the live crowd who don't know that, those technical details definitely thought he lost and like, why wasn't the bell rung? So it's one thing if you're listening to English commentary with encyclopedic Chris Charlton there telling you every single rule that exists, but live experience, everyone was like, why is it still going?
Yeah, it was crazy because that was like Dragon Lee and a lot of Mexican wrestlers do that too, and like it's usually not as loud, but I thought the Takeshita's one tap was so loud that the whole crowd, they erupted, and then Red Shoes was like, no, they're like, boo. I was like, oh my gosh. Next question here from Stale Burger Bun. He says, should we be worried that Shota is the guy from the younger generation with a win over Takeshita?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say no because, well, it's right to worry that if he gets anywhere near it, yes. I just say no because I don't think they'll let him. I could be wrong. But I think after what happened at Korakuen, if they try Shota yet again, there's going to be trouble. But I'm optimistic, at least, that won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, Umino, for whatever reason, he's the one guy that they keep try again. So especially with Takeshita not having a ton of dates for the fall so far, and they need to set up a challenger. Umino can pull that win out the back pocket, but hopefully that is not the direction they go in for the Tokyo Dome. He also asks, have NJPW accidentally made Evil the defender of NJPW and the most fitting guy to dethrone Takeshita instead of any of the younger generation?
I don't think so, but I think that there is that sentiment out there to some degree.
Yeah, the only point I had was accidentally. Like I think you guys have said, like whether you like it or not is a different thing, but I think they well knew what was going to happen, right? So the fact that Evil's got a lot of crowd support, given Takeshita was on the other side of that, is not an accident in my mind.
Yeah, and I think going forward, I don't really see them feuding again, so I don't think Evil's going to be this big defender or whatever. I think it'll be one of the young guys.
I did have the thought watching the match that they might get the hankering to potentially turn him face somewhere down the line because of the reactions that he got here. I'm not saying take that to the bank, but watching, I was like, I guess he's getting cheered a lot. So I don't know if it's a one-off or if it's going to keep happening, but yeah.
Yeah, and for the next question, one point that you made, Fraser, that I totally agree with, that Evil does have some great comedic timing. And as frustrated as I was in this match, when he does the blue justice hole, and like does the I pop for that, and then the Chono, the STF, and so there's a lot of little things he does that is funny, and his laugh like that pops me every time. But yeah,
and the other cool spot he did in the final as well, which I thought was quite cool, was that one where Dick Togo handed him the trophy in about the 5th minute. He held it off on the quarter pass, like, I won. It's like just so ridiculous, right? Like he does stuff like, you know, there's definitely the clown show at House of Torture, fucking Dick Togo ringing the bell every time. But Evil in particular, I think is very, very creative on that front. And I think you're right. There's a little bit of that sort of back in the day, WWE, like Rocky was a heel, but getting, you know, cheered and all that. And I'm not suggesting Evil's quite at that point yet, or got 1/5 of the charisma The Rock does. But, you know, you can see that happening in the past. But if I'm not mistaken, House have had once you go in the house, nobody has left the house yet. Am I right?
Yeah, nobody's left, yeah.
So it would be quite interesting, like if he were to leave, you know, if it's the head honcho going up first, would be interesting. But we have to wait and see.
Yeah. Stelberger also asks, is Takeshita a heel or face?
I mean, I think he's a face in New Japan, and I think he's a heel in AEW. And, you know, that's another interesting way of looking at things is if you were New Japan and you were of the belief that this guy would be getting booed during the tail end of the tour, why not just book? You could have also just booked him as a heel, you know? I mean, he's already a heel in your partner company. Why can't he just be, I'm not saying he needs to be the big bad of the company, but he could have easily just fit into a heel leaning tweener sort of role, the invader, the asshole, and kind of ran with the sentiment. And then at that point, you don't have to do him versus Evil. You could do him versus any of the young guys. And it would be and then with him winning, it would really be like this big shocking thing that you had the outsider win for the first time instead of it being so obvious against Evil. So, I mean, that's another way they could have potentially gone with this if this was what they were potentially worried about.
I'd say two things. I think, you know, when you kind of asking that question, it's not really clearly one way or the other. I would probably, if I was forced to, I'd probably say he's a bit of a tweener at the moment. But my comment I had down here is I think there's more cards to be played here. I feel like we're not at the end of this story yet. You sort of take the Kenta one, right? Where Kenta's whole thing was done all within a single G1. You know, Shibata came in, brought him into the company, and he entered the G1, and then he kicked Shibata in the face in the final. Takeshita hasn't done that. And the other thing, we talked about it before, about this sense of factional alignment. So Takeshita was tagging with United Empire last year, and I heard a little bit about how he found that tour last year, because Hinardi's from New Zealand. I know him relatively well. He's obviously not here at the moment, so I don't have the benefit of it this time. But this time, you know, he was only doing his stuff with Rocky, right? So I think that's another reason why it's not clear. Like New Japan, pretty much everybody's in a faction of one kind or another, but then you got Takeshita sort of all out on his own. So I think that's what also sort of murks things up. And, you know, Finley's talking about guns pointed in, United Empire, you don't know what's doing. LIJ are now unaffiliated, Hontai's bloated. Like, I still think you're going to see a few more cards to be played between now and the Dome. My feeling, again, just as a fan and as a shareholder of Bushi Road, is please speed up your angles so the extortionate ticket prices can be justified by people having enough sense of direction to get fired up. You don't need to tell them everything in advance.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of both what you guys are saying, and I agree with Josh. I think there could have been some money in just running him as a big bad heel throughout the whole tournament, and then, yeah, you could have done Tsuji, Takeshita, and, yeah, you have Takeshita get the win. It's like, oh, man, like the big you get the heat of the foreigner beating the babyface guy, our hero, and then eventually you come back around at some point and have Tsuji beat him and kind of get the revenge.
It never hurt Okada being a heel.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so I don't know why they're so gung-ho and trying to force him as being a babyface and then coming out with a heel, Rocky Romero second, and being a part of the Don Callis family. It's some kind of a little weird cross-company alliance there.
It's being lukewarm and in the middle and missing out on either pushing this guy as a uber babyface that people need to get behind, or as, you know, an arrogant, you know, cocky heel, or whatever, you know, whatever characters they want to portray there. But they neglected to do either of those two things. Another thing too, I want to throw out there, and I know you're raring to go there, Fraser.
No, I'm trying to stay awake on minimal sleep, so keep going.
But you know, the other thing there, oh man, I forgot my point. Then I guess it doesn't matter.
Come on. That's why you shouldn't abuse your co-host. Just focus on your point. You'll get to it. I'll say one thing while you try and remember what it is. And my point would just be a simple one. Coming back to factions is, you know, a common refrain at the moment, people saying is there's basically only one heel faction, right? Which is House of Torture, obviously. And so that's maybe even another reason, if you wish to go there, where you could set up something fresh and new on the heel side of the spectrum for Takeshita to fit into. But hopefully Josh is going to remember his point.
I do remember. This is going to be a little bit of a hot take, and some people probably won't appreciate it, but I wasn't really impressed with Takeshita's G1 as a whole. That's not to say he didn't have some good to great performances, but last year, he just looked like the man completely, and someone that you were like, all right, this is the ace. Like, this is the dude. And this year, he wasn't presented that way. And I think it also falls in line with what I mentioned there, where it's like they neglected to go one way or the other with him. And the work that he was doing in this tournament was, while it was good, I couldn't tell if he was just dogging it because he's like, you know how when people show up to MLW, they don't try as hard?
Yeah.
That's like, he might be taking it a little bit easy. He's got some dates left in America. You know, he's got to get back home. That could have been it. I don't know if maybe there was rumblings about his knee actually being hurt and that being something, but he did a lot of selling in this tour. And I didn't think that very many of the honestly, I didn't think any of the matches that he had were like match of the year contenders or anything that I'm going to look back 12 months from now and like really think is a top tier end performance. And he didn't get over. I mean, he is popular. Like, he does have, you know, reactions, but he didn't feel like he got over to a new degree by winning the tournament and everything like that. So I don't know. I'm a little disheartened by all that.
Can I say two things? Because there's a couple of points that came to mind as Josh was talking about that and prompted by his words. The first one is about getting people over, right? And this is broader than just Takeshita, but this talks about all our so-called younger generation. But coming back to the theme of the Best of Super Juniors, parity booking. And I'm quite a numbers guy, right? And I looked at where did the results end up. And in Block A, given you got 9 matches, right? So I consider parity booking to be either 5 and 4 or 4 and 5, right? You can't be 4.5 unless you've got draws or whatever. So in Block A, there were only 2 wrestlers out of 10 that didn't have a 4 or a 5, a parity booking record. That was EVIL, who you guys have waxed lyrical about, and also Taichi, who's sort of at the bottom end of things. Then in Block B, 6 of the 10 guys were parity booked as well. And in that block, you had Gabe Kidd giving freebies out to everybody, which kind of funds, if I can call it that, a lot of extra wins for people. And you have 3 guys advancing from each block, and you book 14 out of 20 parity. I mean, that to me is a big reason why you don't have breakout stars. Like, someone could go 9-0, someone could go 8-1, somebody could go 7-2. I think, Zach,
yeah,
not mistaken, was the only one that went 7-2. He's a fucking world champ, right? Like, it's not as if that's going to break him out to another level that wasn't there before. And then one last thing I'd say, just in terms of Takeshita, if he is supposed to be a babyface, and that isn't, if going back to the question, like one thing I think he needs to learn a bit more is about how to play up to the crowd. And I'll give you a simple example of this, which actually pissed me off, but maybe it's just more my thing, is that after he won the G1, he gets the trophy, he gets the flag, he stands to hug camera, poses, gets all the photographers. He's got a fucking entire Ariake arena with people on all four sides, doesn't go to any of the turnbuckles to get up there and hold the trophy aloft and get that iconic photo celebration that people would want. He just sort of fucks off to the back. And I'm sorry, but, you know, if you want to sell the knee or whatever, there's a time and a place for that. And it's not being able to climb up to the corner post. And I do still feel, it's just my sense watching live, that Takeshita's he's very good in ring, but I think still he's got a bit to work on in terms of character, which is potentially one of the reasons why that question came up before. Like, what is he? If he's going to be one or the other, I still think he's got a way to go there.
Yeah, and top of that too, a lot of his post-match promos, you know, he did win a lot of main events, and obviously winning the main event here, his post-match promos seemed very short and kind of quick and to the point, and it's like, yeah, if you want him to be, if you did all this to get him good reactions, like have him cut a, you know, endearing promo, but they didn't go that direction either.
Yep.
But again, I just last point I'd say, let's see what happens from here. I think there's more to come.
Yeah. Next here is a comment from friend of the show, Rich Latta. He says AEW wins again.
Okay.
Next question from friend of the show, Zach Porter. He says, with a DDT versus Noah main event at Wrestle Kingdom 20, how do I personally thank Gato?
Who from Noah does he think he's wrestling?
He's assuming that it'll be Zach versus Takeshita. I think he's considering Zach a Noah guy.
A Noah guy. Oh, okay, gotcha.
So.
Well, he can choose how he wishes to personally thank Gato, who may be in jail by that stage, so the ability to exit may be limited. But obviously, I think what we're seeing, right, is that's probably in the news section, but that's going to be October, right? That thing. So I think you've got another match after that.
Yeah.
But who knows? Nigel McGuinness may well be the champion come Wrestle Kingdom, right? So
yeah, Tower of London, big rebound lariat.
I thought about it today, and I decided they should have just made that match non-title. Because there wouldn't be as much complaint about the match happening, with it being like, oh, these are undeserving challengers, if the title was never even on the line in the first place. If it was just sold as like the top technicians in the world face, the best technical wrestler in the world, and then it's just for bragging rights. And then when Nigel McGuinness wins, you're like, okay, it's a dream match. And because the title's not on the line, it does open up the greater possibility. What if he wins? It's still unlikely, but he's not winning the IWGP title. But if it's a non-title match, you might be thinking to yourself like, okay, well, if he won, they could come back and do a title match. And it really does beg to question, like, what would they do in that situation? But, I digress.
Yeah.
Just one quick thing, and just say I am very reluctant to say much on Forbidden Door at all. I won't be watching, but the thing that comes to mind there is Josh mentioned the word undeserving challenger. Unknown challenger is what I would say in Japan. No one knows who the fuck Nigel McGuinness even is, right? And when you reach that point, not good.
Well, speaking of AEW, next question here from Def Triangle 720. Do you think New Japan fans have gotten too bitter regarding anything AEW related? It seems like any time AEW is talked, the death threats and hope of killing that company gets stronger.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't really travel in any particular Puro circles. I'm not overly. I'm busy, guys. I got a job. I got a life. So I don't know what the sentiments are. I know that I personally am not really watching AEW these days, and I was a big fan and advocate when it started, but it's just not a product for me at this point, is what I'm kind of gathering. But I don't know. You guys probably know what the vibe is out there more than I do. I don't know.
Well, I'm curious to hear, Fraser, as you know, you're being in the buildings. You mentioned people don't know Nigel. Like, when you go to shows, kind of what is the feeling and vibe from people you talk to about AEW?
Well, I think the first point would be, in short, pretty much no one in Japan watches it, right? And it's not really that they actively dislike it. They just don't watch it. They don't know about it. The more hardcore fans are definitely anti-Tony Khan. So there's the occasional like Twitter hitting that says, New Japan fan, fuck Tony Khan. And but I think, you know, to me, and New Japan are in part to blame, but I think the maybe 2 or 3 biggest problems New Japan have versus when I first arrived in Japan versus now. One was uncontrollable. That was Corona. Attending wrestling shows as a habit. That was broken by an uncontrollable factor. Secondly was AEW. And there were 2 parts to that, right? Was, could New Japan have controlled that? And maybe could they have had at least some sort of involvement in starting some sort of US promotion off or not? So you could say they kind of got caught with their pants down at the beginning with Kenny and all those guys moving away with Tony Khan. But then I think what's particularly resented is after that started, all the talent that's been, you know, taken since. And a lot of people say, oh, that's free market stuff. But the Japanese are definitely not happy about that. That is for sure. They don't tend to vent their criticism quite as strongly as some of the Western fans do on social media. But that anti-AEW sentiment is there. And again, that's why Takeshita, one of 2 big reasons why maybe he wasn't the ultimate babyface that maybe some thought he might be.
Yeah, you know, and I see a lot of mixed reactions online, and you know, I've been seeing a lot of Japanese posts that have been coming up about like kind of their displeasure, like you mentioned, of like not knowing Nigel or having this AEW/DDT guy in the G1 finals and winning the G1. And then of course you have the Western side of the whole, you know, promotion war and people trying to make their claims there. And like for me, like I enjoy AEW. I still watch Dynamite every week. I'm gonna watch Forbidden Door this weekend, and I enjoy the AEW product. And well, you know, a lot of my favorite wrestlers are there. You know, Kenny Omega and a lot of these guys that I've watched from New Japan or Will Ospreay. All these guys are there now, and they have some other stars like Swerve and stuff like that I enjoy watching. So you know, that's my favorite American promotion. But you know, you can't. I totally get why New Japan fans are bitter, and for people who don't understand, like, you know, the whole like AEW partnership was supposed to be this big awesome thing. You know, it didn't happen right at the beginning of the company, and fans, you know, kind of clamored for it to the point that they made a pay-per-view called Forbidden Door to kind of celebrate, you know, us, the companies finally working together and being able to do these big promotional dream matches. And then like started off cool, and then it's like, oh, Jay White's gone, oh, Will Ospreay's gone, oh, Okada's gone, and even like some of the like, oh, Juice is gone, and like Trent's gone. It's like blow after blow. It's like, and I get it, I totally get it. It's, you know, guys are gonna go where they make the most money, and I'm not blaming any guy for leaving and getting, you know, that TK money, only working 1 or 2 days a week and not doing all these tours. I totally get it, but it is frustrating. It's like we had the best roster in the world with these top talent guys, and like now they're gone. And also New Japan has failed to prepare for that and didn't get the next generation ready. I feel like they were resting on their laurels and just thinking, oh, we're going to have Naito forever, we're going to have Okada forever, we're going to have Ibushi forever, and not getting the young generation ready, and are still failing to do that. And I think part of that is on them. And like you mentioned, Fraser, some of that is on the generation of just not having the charisma or character or connection. And so I get why some New Japan fans would be bitter against AEW, because it just seems like they take and take and take, and it's like, all right, what are we getting back? And sure, they gave us Takeshita, which is cool. Takeshita is one of the best wrestlers in the world. He won the Never title. He's worked, this is his second G1. He did US dates. He did some Japan dates, and this is probably the most active AEW guy since like John Moxley that's come over. And so, yeah, it's cool, but then it's like, what else is there? And, we get to Forbidden Door, and we'll talk about the card, and it's like looking at like, and I get it, it's horrible timing with G1 just ending and stuff like that, but it's like, I still think there could have been some more compelling matches made based off of that. And so I think it's just a difficult thing being a fan of both promotions, or just being a diehard New Japan fan and wanting more and kind of getting scraps.
I just say two real brief points just to end there. One, Jimmy, in terms of what AEW gave us, I think you've forgotten about the magnificent Jungle Boy run. That was fantastic. and took me all over Japan following that one. And then secondly, it's obviously sarcasm just in case I get called out as a Jungle Boy fan. And the second one is I did see a lot of Japanese accounts talk about Rocky on this tour, and this conflict of interest, multiple roles. Is he a spy? These kind of things coming through. And, again, if Takeshita's getting pushed as a babyface, do you want the guy standing beside you to be Rocky Romero? That's probably another question. And I'm not bashing Rocky at all here. Like definitely in the past, he's been massively over and was a very popular babyface going back to the Chaos days. But I think the perception these days from Japanese fans is he's much more of a AEW guy or Tony Khan guy than what he is on the New Japan side of the fence.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the next question from West Commission 7252. What would you think the outcome would have been for the fans if EVIL had won? Do you think they would have regretted cheering for him to win the G1, or possibly the start of a babyface journey of EVIL? I think he would have wrestled more clean like he did against Takeshita, because EVIL is a great wrestler. I think he would have put on a great performance in the main event at the Tokyo Dome. Do you think the whole booking of the end of the G1 was to get EVIL over?
Come on, Josh.
I mean, we've seen what EVIL at the top looks like. I don't know why you would think anything different would, come of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, LIJ EVIL, and I know LIJ was more of tweeners when he was apart, but I mean, he did the chair baseball spot, but essentially he wrestled his matches clean, and like his best matches were against like Ishii, which surprise, he had his best match against Ishii. Don't get me wrong, I think EVIL is a good wrestler. Also, he has the dojo fundamentals, and he is very charismatic, but I don't think he is capable of having what New Japan fans see as like that match of the level style matchup, that strong style kind of wrestling. I just don't think he is there, and especially now he's older, and like you mentioned, Fraser, like the COVID era kind of happened, and like he got his push during then. It's like there's so much factors against him. While I'm like, I don't see why we're going with this guy. And again, you go back to ticket sales and merch sales and all this stuff, and it's like things are not going through the roof with pushing him ever.
Well, I think all I'd say to finish it off is just I do think EVIL has the potential, whether they'll go there or not is another thing, to have a very popular babyface run at some point, which would be more centered around his character as much as his wrestling. But he is older, yes, but remember, and I've heard this from Hinata in the past, is like a lot of wrestlers wouldn't mind being in the House of Torture because it's much easier on your body, right? When you're doing a few bull shots and they're going to ring the bell for you and stuff. So I don't know. I reckon EVIL's like, again, he's not best in the world stuff or anything like that. But I think if he was a babyface, he can put on some pretty decent showings in matches towards the top of the card.
Next question's here from Reddit user Fecal Soup. Says it felt like during the final match that EVIL had a sizable / large amount of crowd support behind him, and I wasn't expecting this. Do you think it was due to him being a homegrown NJPW talent? And yeah, we kind of talked about that, and I do think that's why he got that reaction. And then he has a question for you, Fraser. He says, what was your favorite non-Tokyo or non-Osaka venue from this tournament? And in regards to the semis and finals, could you notice a difference in the energy and vibe since this year the finals was in Ariake rather than Ryogoku?
So again, my attendance was not as comprehensive as in past years, but it sounds a bit ridiculous to say. I mean, 9 shows is not that much, but the one I enjoyed the most, and I always enjoy, is Nagaoka, which is in Niigata Prefecture. That's where the New Japan Cup final is always held in March. It's a fantastic venue. It's quite easily accessible by Shinkansen from Tokyo, maybe an hour and a half to get there. The venue's right next to the station. There's really good food there. The acoustics, the lighting, everything is very good in there. So I would definitely say that was my favorite place outside of Tokyo, bearing in mind I skipped a lot of the other venues. But to be honest, again, part of the reason, there's mainly business reasons, was why I didn't go to the other 10 or whatever, but there was nothing really that I felt like, I really want to go to that venue or something, because there's not really new exciting ones. So that's what I'd say for outside of Tokyo. And then, sorry, the question about, what was the second part? About Ariake Arena, was it?
Yeah, he said, in regards to the semis and finals, could you notice a difference in the energy and vibe between Ariake and Ryogoku?
Semis struggled for 2 reasons. One, the crowd attendance was poor. 4.5 is the official attendance. I hope that's the real attendance. It really did look quite spotty, to be honest, live. And then, of course, the vibe of the crowd was not assisted by the first semi-final falling in EVIL's favour, when everybody pretty much thought Tsuji was going to win. So that's night 1. Although I would say what helps is, again, Ariake Arena has incredible acoustics. It's like a concert venue. It was created for the Tokyo Olympics, so it's a brand new stadium. It's got fantastic air conditioning, which is really important in Japan in the middle of summer. And the stage, I thought, was really impressive as well, with a sort of G1 Climax 35 logo up the top and underneath. Then the final had good energy, I think. Sort of the undercard was pretty rapid. And one thing I would say, which I'm sure you guys noticed as well, semis and finals were very short shows, right? Like, both of them only went about 2.5 hours, and sort of I thought the final in particular might go a lot longer. So it was a pretty easy watch, and people, especially in the final, were more in a celebratory mood, and it looked much more full for the final. So I the ratio of, what was it, 4.5 to 6.5 or something. 6.5 feels good. 4.5 feels I'm not so sure. But it was a good vibe on the final. And I think, again, I know not everybody will like it, but the atmosphere of the second half of that final match was really, really fascinating, I think, for me. So I think the energy level was good. But what also burst the bubble when everyone was walking out, though, was that the ticket prices for Wrestle Kingdom came out. That's what everybody was talking about.
Next question here from Dry Enthusiasm 3316. What do the Japanese fans think of the idea an outsider will dominate the company for the next 5 months?
I kind of think we covered that, right, with the Takeshita analysis before. I'd probably just be repeating myself, I think.
Yeah, and I think kind of you made a great point of, the Japanese fan, it's not this monolith, like, all of them, get together and, like, we all think this. Like, there were people cheering Takeshita, and, like, you're a Takeshita fan. Like, there are people who enjoy Takeshita and wanted to see him win. There are people who wanted to see EVIL win in that moment. There are House of Torture fans, and there are going to be some fans who don't like it. There's going to be some who do like it. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Yeah.
Next question from Reddit user StinkFaceLover. Has New Japan done serious damage with the booking in the tournament? I feel like the booking has been so baffling, a lot of people may just walk away. Can they easily walk this back, or have they crossed a line in the sand and permanently damage their brand?
Can I just say one thing completely random, and it's got nothing to do with this question, but do you guys do any pre-screening of the handles of your question people? Like Steve Face Number, Pussy Destroyer, there's quite a few controversial ones out there. I'm not quite sure who your fan base is, but
sickos.
Yeah, this is all on Jeremy. Jeremy.
Hey, I don't create their names. They send the question in. They give the gimmick name. That's what I got.
No,
you can come up with like screening protocols. It's gonna be on you. I'm not the boss. So.
We'll get Emily on that.
Well, what's happened to Pussy Destroyer? Because I often mention it to my girlfriend. And she said, "No, they're going to ban the show called Pussy Destroyer." She's like, "What?" No, seriously. And she didn't believe me. So I had to go through an old episode to find out when Pussy Destroyer asked the question. And she's like, "I cannot believe it." I said, "I told you, Pussy Destroyer is real."
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. He's been quiet for a while. Maybe he's run away from the booking.
It's very possible.
I mean, again, I think this is touching on things we've already covered. I would just say more cards to be played. Let's see what happens from now through Wrestle Kingdom. Are some fans alienated, I guess, is a question. I mean, one point I would say, actually, which I haven't really mentioned, but ties a few bows together, is if you remember, and Samson likes this one, Tanahashi's famous 10-point plan, right? Where pretty much every single point has been the exact opposite of what has happened. So one of his points, which is important, is that he said he would sell out the Dome on 1st of January 2026. Well, at these ticket prices,
that's not going to happen.
Haven't got a shit show of doing that. So I think it's super, super critical that they get out whatever interesting angles. Aaron Wolf's debuting. Okay, who's he fighting? Tanahashi's retiring. Who's he fighting? All these guys are talking about factional changes and all that. Or is any of this happening? The card has come out for Destruction. That's okay. It's not like you got to get too mind-blown by that. But This is another point he said, right? He's got no chance of selling the Tokyo Dome out. Like, of course, he's got his retirement thing, which will make a difference. But if he does 40, he'll be lucky. To sell it out, you need to get up like 60, 70. If you go back to the olden days, no chance.
Yeah, ain't no way. Next question here from Fish Hook FPC. With everything laid out as it is, the Takeshita ZSJ match for the title seeming to be set for the fall. None of the young guys being elevated. The only really over babyface is Goto and still out until Street Fighter finishes filming, presumably sometime this fall. Where do you see New Japan going from here? It seems like we're destined to have Takeshita in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom as champion, but beyond that, the road ahead still feels incredibly murky post G1. Follow-up, what is your vision for the Reiwa 3 now that we have all collectively failed again to reach the pinnacle in the G1? Do you think people are starting to lose hope that any of them will break through?
There's a lot to cover in that question, so I'll try to keep it brief, but it's like someone asked earlier if this could be some sort of like delineation line between fandom one way or the other. And I do think that there is that possibility. Like, you don't want to make large decisions like this that wind up alienating the fan base. I'm not trying to be Nostradamus and say for sure, like, this will be the moment where we look back, but it could be. It could be.
Delivery. I'll step out for 1 second. Sorry.
The other thing too is, the thing with the Reiwa guys not getting pushed again, that just adds to what we've been saying about how dissatisfying and disheartening this booking is overall.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you mentioned, like you say, we've kind of covered and talked about week after week. And yeah, it's hard to know where the company's going just because of the just unpredictable and kind of shoddy booking this year. And I don't know about Japanese fans and the fans who like it and don't like it, but I do feel like for the Western fans, I did see a lot more negative reactions. And I know that New Japan's not really playing to the Western crowd as much. They're not any more U.S. dates for a while. And But I do feel like that hardcore Western fan base a lot of them could walk away from after this G1. Moving on to the next question, Rambo and Slam Pig says, looking back at the G1 as a whole, who do you think made the most of their opportunities in this tournament?
It would probably be, in my opinion, Oiwa, Taichi,
Drilla,
Yoshihashi, Drilla.
You have any other names there, Fraser?
Yeah, they might piss you off though. I put because they made the final. I put EVIL and Takeshita in there as well.
Nice. He also asked, if you had a magic wand and could change any 3 things about New Japan, what would they be?
I did write 3 things. 1, make Takeshita 100% New Japan guy. That would definitely help. 2, if such a thing existed, a charisma injection for Oiwa, Uemura, Shota, Callum, and Bolton. And number 3 would be faction upheaval completion. Like, what are you doing with unaffiliated? Get rid of United Empire. Callum does, Callum even used the words, right? You remember, Jeremy? He said United Empire sucks. It's like, well, if you think it sucks, then shut it down. Takeshita needs to be affiliated to somebody. I think you need another heel stable. Like, that's the sort of the factional side of it. So those would be my 3 changes.
We already went through our 3 suggestions, I think, just last week about what we would change about the company.
Yeah, I don't remember what I said, but I mean, booking the creative team is number 1. Yeah, less outside interference, and then push the young guys. Next question from Drawer says, what was with the WAC venues all tour? Did they change their strategy this year? And Fraser, maybe you can answer to that, being to so many of the buildings and some building changes this year.
It's very concise, to be honest. And in fairness to them, it was outside of their control. So Ryo Goku and Edion, and Ryo Goku is Sumo Hall. Edion is where the Osaka main shows are held. Were under construction, so they were unavailable. And then in Nagoya, Dolphins Arena was the one they normally go to, and that's where the Tanahashi Retirement Jam was, because that building's getting demolished. So Sumo used that as well in Nagoya, and Sumo has moved to a beautiful stadium. I actually went there last month for one of the Sumo matches. But sadly for New Japan and its current state of affairs, you can fit about 9,000 people in the IG Arena. And New Japan cannot draw that. So New Japan took their tournament to one of these fabulous Misei venues. So there was heaps of those, which again was another reason why I thought I'll really just focus on the Tokyo and close by shows this year.
Nice. Next question here. Death Triangle 720. Was the tournament over? Do you think the young guys left in a better position after the G1 than before?
About the same in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a wash.
I just say 2 names that I think sort of progressed one way or another: Oiwa and Callum.
Yeah, Oiwa worked really hard in this tournament. Yeah, I do think he elevated his stock some, but I mean, as a positioning, I mean, he's still kind of slotted kayfabe wise where he was pretty much before tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
MJ says G1 ticket sales appear to be down on the whole. Can you guys speculate on whether this is a general NJPW malaise or a combination of venue selection, ticket prices, and for Fraser, local marketing?
Oh, I think it's general malaise. I actually, because I was talking to Josh about this a couple of days back, I went to Bushi Roads. They released their latest financial results last Thursday. And so the long story short, basically the share price is basically still now where it was immediately before the release. But I think it's important to give just a little bit of context, because I went and had a look at the share price this year, and I am an investor in Bushi Road. So Bushi Road started the year off the share price of 400 yen. Now it's 700 yen. It's up 75%. And the Nikkei, or the broader Japanese index for all Japanese companies as a whole, is only up about 10%, right? So 75% is a massive uptick. But of course, what we need to remember with Bushi Road, multiple businesses. And my biggest takeaway from the actual results itself is just how small now the so-called sports department, which includes New Japan and Stardom, is. So out of total sales revenue, sports now only makes up 10%, which is a combination of all the other core businesses thriving. And what core businesses, trading cards, live entertainment, merchandise sales, all this kind of stuff, and not talking pro wrestling merch sales, but other merch sales, have all gone up. At the same time, the sports department now represents 2% of the company's profitability. So, Japan moves slowly, but when I look at the overall business model of Bushiroad, all the other departments are kind of interconnected. Like they have live performances by characters, and they make trading card games about them. Then they sell merch about them. And then you got this random kind of pro wrestling thing off to the side. But Bushiroad have owned New Japan for 14 years now. So it feels like quite a sticky asset that I'm not really sure that they would want to sell. But they said the translation of the report on the sports department was sluggish ticket sales for New Japan. They acknowledged that. Then they also talked about Stardom as well. And I think there's one thing that jumped out at me, and you guys would probably already know this, but, we just talked about the G1 drawing 6.5 or something like that. Stardom, for that Yokohama show earlier in the year, drew 7.5, right? So Stardom, which is a subsidiary of New Japan, is now a much better place. And basically their commentary on Stardom was that the year was tough at the beginning, with a lot of their stars leaving, off to America or retiring or whatever they did. But they made a specific point to say fourth quarter, which was April to June, has improved. But they know that New Japan is struggling, and they talked about the sluggish ticket sales. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think anyone's running out of the G1 saying, oh, I really want to buy that 1 million yen front row ticket for Wrestle Kingdom. So, Goto, to be fair, while he was champion, I think people said, it's kind of going sideways. Goto propped them up, right? He's not there. Mm-hmm. I'm slightly kind of worried what the next 5 months will bring, but we'll need to wait and see. But definitely sluggish, right? There was some super disappointing crowds along the way. One of them was Otaku Night 1. They only drew like 1,300 people. That's less than Korakuen Hall. You might as well go there. Osaka, because they didn't have that good venue, ran 2 shows. They were midweek shows, and they drew just over 1,000 each. Osaka's the second biggest market after Tokyo. Like there are definitely some worrying signs there, and it's getting talked about backstage, I'm pretty sure, as well. Like it is legitimately a concern.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Stardom thing, and that is kind of a frustrating thing, because a lot of people will make excuses for New Japan and be like, oh, all the stars are gone, that's why things aren't working. And it's like, well, yeah, look at Stardom. All the stars left, and what did they do? They made new ones. They pushed their younger female talent. They found who had the charisma, who had the good wrestling, pushed them, made younger stars, new stars, and the company's over, and they're drawing all these big numbers and doing well. So the lack of stars is not, you can't fall on that sword forever.
Yeah.
Next question from Dark Soldier. He says, it looks like Takeshita might be cashing in his briefcase early. Tsuji and Tanahashi seem to be that they might be heated up for the Destruction Tour. Could you see the two wrestling at King of Pro Wrestling, with Tsuji getting his win back there and making the challenge to Mr. Yuka Sakazaki at the end of the show for Wrestle Kingdom?
What? Making a challenge to Yuka Sakazaki?
Mr. He's playing the relationship between
I think that's as plausible booking as any other that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, about as a wrestling fan, for me at least, I actually quite like it when you don't know what's going to happen. It can be frustrating at times when you think you've got such little to go on that you don't really know. But I'm certainly expecting, come King of Pro Wrestling time, Takeshita wins. Zack going into the last Wrestle Kingdom draw-wise didn't seem to work as champ, so I'd be surprised if they went down that path again. And I'm discounting Nigel McGuinness's chances as well. Cool.
Yeah, and maybe the whole reason why they held off Tsuji Takeshita from the finals is because that is the Tokyo Dome title match. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Next question from Cool Jammer 00. what is actually exciting or intriguing you about the product currently?
Josh, do you
I don't really have an answer, to be honest with you. But it also, we are coming off of like 19 nights of G1 action. We're going to have a few weeks here, and maybe with some time to like breathe between the end of the finals and whatever else is happening in the greater picture of New Japan, that might change. But coming out of this tour today, right now, looking at the overall landscape, I don't know. There's maybe some of those young guys, like the young Lions, are always still cool to watch.
Yeah.
I'd say two things. One, but maybe I'm a bit of a sicko. I quite enjoy this beautiful chaos. Like everything is just all over the place at the moment. I quite like it. That's one point, right? So I'm quite partial to the occasional rant and stuff. I obviously don't want people to be unhappy or anything, but you know, one thing it does tell you though, right? If people really go off online, it's because they care, right? So that care is still there. I think the second thing is that the direction is hard to call at the moment going into January. And again, they have pinned so many hopes on multiple levels about, you know, doing as many people and as much yen as possible come Tokyo Dome season time. So to the extent G1 really only had for me one big angle, which was the Yota Ice and Co coming back, there's a shitload more that needs to happen in the next 5 months, right? We find out who Tanahashi's retirement opponent is. We find out what Aaron Wolf's going to do. Are they going to try and give him some sort of character before then? I think there's a lot to look forward to. I guess the frustrating thing is you don't feel like you've got really much of that yet. So I guess if people can be patient, I think from October onwards, I think we should have a good stretch of character stuff to go with.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I think the one thing that keeps me hooked is overall the in-ring product. I know there was a lot of how to torture this tour and a lot of stuff that we criticized, but overall I still think that New Japan has some of the best wrestling going, and there are a lot of young guys I like. I like Suji a lot, and I think there's a lot of interesting guys that they have on the roster. I feel like they're just not utilizing everything well. So I think there's stuff there that could be good, but yeah, the current booking setup has left a lot to be desired. Next question from Death Triangle 720. Which guy do you think had more upside to be champion walking into the Dome, ZSJ or Takeshita?
I'm going to guess Takeshita. I think Takeshita, but hard to say.
So what's the question? Who's got more upside? Who's got more chance? Or who's better as the champion?
I think it's just asking who has more upside, probably from a fan, but also business perspective.
Yeah.
Takeshita.
Yeah, I would agree. And then last question here from Hit Chompy says, will a third ZSJ Takeshita match in 3 months further impact attendance if they do a title match at King of Pro Wrestling, or will the quality of the previous two bouts and the realistic possibility of a title change help ticket sales?
I think you answered your question there.
Yeah, I think the draw of the match and a potential of a title change could lead to a big draw.
Well, one thing I just say about ticket sales for that particular event as well, even more random, is that fan club lottery for King of Pro Wrestling, which is less than 2 months away, hasn't even started yet. They are really either unintentionally or otherwise very disorganized this time around.
Yeah. Well, that is it for all the G1 related questions. Josh, you want to run through the news items there?
Yeah, so Blue Justice returns for the 16th edition. Nagata's produce show will be coming to Tokani Arena in Chiba September 7th. The main event of that show will be Tanahashi versus Nagata, which you have to imagine is probably the last time that ever takes place. Peon, a special event from Cork and Hall, coming to NJPW World Pay-Per-View September 12th. This is going to be produced by the staff of the popular Shinichi Champion Variety Show, which is on NJPW World. And TV Asahi. This event's already sold out for Corkin Hall, and it's going to feature like unique, like factions being mixed up, in-ring pairings, so stuff like that. And there have been some matches announced for the card. I don't know if I need to go through those now or if we'll save them for later.
Well, we can just announce them. There was a match for that Peon card, the Generation Crash.
Yeah, so the IWGP World Champion Zack Sabre Jr. teams with Ishii and Taichi, the tag team champions, and Ryuzuki Taguchi. They'll be taking on the team of Shota Umino, Yuya Uemura, Ryohei Oiwa, and Kosei Fujita. Corkin Hall is going to play host to the third night of Road to Destruction Tour, September 13th, featuring the never openweight 6-man tag team titles on the line as the champions, Yano, Yo, and Wato, defend the titles against the fellow Hantai trio of Tanahashi, Desperado, and Taguchi. Road to Destruction Tour continues in Hokkaido in Noborabetsu on September 15th. There's going to be a 2 out of 3 falls match as Tanahashi teams with Desperado and Taguchi to take on Yano, Makabe, and Tomoaki Hanma, all former members of what's the group called? Great Bash Heel. Conclusion of the Road to Destruction Battle Line Hokkaido Tour will take place September 24th at Kita Gas Arena in Sapporo. On that show, Desperado will be defending the junior title against Yo. Sho and Doki defend the junior tag team titles against Robbie Eagles and Fujita, and then Hiroshi Tanahashi will take on Master Wato in singles action. The first matches have been made official for Destruction in Kobe, set from Kobe World Hall Sunday, September 28th. The IWGP Global title will be on the line between Shingo Takagi and Gabe Kidd, Yota Tsuji versus Dave Finlay, Hiromu Takahashi versus Ishimori. The Knockout Brothers, Yuto, Ice, and Oscar will challenge for the IWGP Tag Team titles. Taichi and Ishii as the champions. Hiroshi Tanahashi will take on Great Okan in singles action. Couple quick questions here. Death Triangle 720 says, do you feel like the fall programs are uninspired outside of the heavy tag title program?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot of rematches. Matches we've seen a lot of, Tsuji Finlay, Hiromu Ishimori, Desperado Yo. There doesn't seem to be a lot of new, fresh, interesting angles or matchups. Yeah, the freshest thing right now, is Knockout Brothers.
Just one very big thing I say. I think Shingo Gabe Kidd will be good given the circumstances of recent weeks. I think Shingo Takagi strikes me as a legitimately angry man. So.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great match, but I mean, we did that 3 times last year, and it's not like it's a fresh new feud and Gabe's been gone. But yeah, at the end of the day, it will be a great match.
He also says, do you think that they're not spacing out their matches enough or returning to old feuds too quickly? He gave an example of Yo versus Desperado and Finlay Tsuji.
Yeah, I think there is some truth to that. I mean, Despe, does that feel exciting? No. No. It's almost like we're in a parallel universe. You've got the card as you know it at the moment, which is going down I tell you what, one anecdote which summarizes all of this very simplistically. So I met a friend of mine who's been only a New Japan fan for about 1 or 2 years. And they went to Korakuen Hall. And I saw them afterwards and said, how many matches did you go to? And said, no, just this one. So just one. And I said, why is that? And they said, choto sumaranai, which means boring. And this is coming from someone who's only joined the fan base like 1 year ago, right? And they're already bored. There is some of that, but there's this part in my mind that doesn't make sense, which is they've got to get to Tokyo Dome with a loaded card to flick off all these tickets. And what you can see until at least the end of September doesn't look terribly exciting, which makes me optimistic by default, if you like. That must be good from October onwards. Like, how else are you going to sell out Tokyo Dome, right? There's definitely angles to be shot and hopefully some more interesting matches to be made. Maybe they're just on a bit of a holding period at the moment, but it's interesting because I'm pretty sure in September, that's when the fan club lottery will go on sale for Tokyo Dome. So if they're relying on Despair and Yo and Finley Suji to push tickets, good luck, boys. You're going to need it.
Last question here. Les Commission 7252 says, what are you guys most interested in? And what are you guys most interested and least interested in for the upcoming Destruction Tour? I'm most interested in seeing if Yo can dethrone Desperado, become junior champion, as well as the Dangerous Techers reunion taking place when Ishii and Zach will end up on the same team. I'm less interested in seeing Suji and Finley once again.
For me, I think the most interesting thing is the Knockout Brothers. I'm interested to see like how their presentation is going to be in ring and kind of what they're going to look like. And, you know, they're set up against really great opponents in Ishii and Taichi. And so based on what we saw from them as Young Lions, some of their excursion stuff, like that could be a really great match. It could be the match of the tour.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'm also curious to see, will they actually put them over, right? Getting back to the spirit of pushing the new guys. Are they going to come straight back in and win the titles or not? I think that's a quip to that match as well, which would be interesting.
I'm most excited for Tanahashi Nagata at Blue Justice 16.
Let's go.
With that being the case, one last thing here. So Forbidden Door, I think we might have touched on these last week a little bit, but the final tally of matches involving New Japan talent for that show: Zack Sabre Jr. versus Nigel McGuinness for the IWGP World Heavyweight title, Kyle Fletcher versus Hiromu Takahashi for the TNT title, and then finally a lights out steel cage match as the team of the Death Riders, the Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd take on the Golden Lovers, Will Ospreay, Darby Allin, and Hiroshi Tanahashi in his final UK match ever.
I'm just going to say one thing on that, which you guys probably already said, but so the savior of New Japan is squaring off against the president of New Japan, who's babyface. I rest my case.
Yeah, we'll see if Tanahashi makes it to the Tokyo Dome, if he listens to Will Ospreay and does a high fly flow off the cage.
As a New Japan fan, this stuff might be fine when it's all said and done on the show, and I'm sure, but it's for the AEW audience. Like, this stuff basically at this point, it's laughable to even have the lion mark as AEW and New Japan present. It's not a New Japan show in any way, shape, or form. It's pretty much like, remember when WWE, I never watched these shows, but remember when they first started doing the Saudi shows and that shit didn't matter?
Yeah.
It was just, that's what this is. As it pertains to New Japan.
Yeah, I can only imagine that really, from a business perspective, all they're doing is giving the New Japan branding rights there. Tony Khan's probably writing a decent check to New Japan, so they're like, oh yeah, whatever. You can do these matches that we don't care about. And it's on pay-per-view as well, right? So nobody in Japan is going to buy or watch them.
And that is going to do it for the news.
Cool. Well, I think we have a few questions. Let's push those off to next week. We'll need some more stuff to talk about next week. And let's wrap the show up here. So, Fraser, thanks again for joining us this early morning over your time in Japan. Go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you online and plug anything else that you want to plug.
Only one thing, just Twitter account at Fraser Japan. If you're curious, go to a lot of shows, just try and take pictures to give a bit of a sense of what the vibe is in the building. And actually, one other thing I should say, because you two have asked me about this as well. For anyone who is planning to come to Wrestle Kingdom in January, if you do have questions about the hows and whats of getting to Japan, getting around Japan, what to try and do, what to try and see, by all means, flick me a DM or whatever. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. I've been to pretty much absolutely everywhere, so I should be able to help you, food recommendations, whatever. That would be my other point to mention.
Nice. Well, thanks again for joining us. And yeah, hopefully looking forward to seeing you in Japan come Wrestle Kingdom season.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap us up. Next week, we'll be back to preview Forbidden Door and look at all the latest news coming out of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Remember, if you want to watch our show live, listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at socialsuplex, at Jeremy L. Donovan, and at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/socialsuplex. Join us on Reddit. I'm the Polar Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. And check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, One Nation Radio, with Rich Latta and James Boyd, All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin, Imps, Venture of the Implications, Matthew Mayer, Wrestling Art with Chris Slings, Tone Talk with Allie and Leah, and the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating interview. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
When it comes to home insurance, Geico works for you. And since I'm the Geico Gecko, I'm here working for you too.
Hey, Gecko, can you record my voicemail greeting?
No problemo. You've reached the amazing Rita. She's probably busy right now teaching music theory to neighbourhood birds, or telling a total stranger how they can bundle home and car insurance with Geico to get the discounts they deserve. But rest assured, she'll get back to you once she's done brightening her little corner of the world. Did that sound all right?
Nailed it. No notes.
Let Geico work for you. Get more with Geico.